Chapter 8:14. Assassination in the Forest 4. Second Master? Su Luo recalled what Ziyan said before and couldn't help but ask. This second master of yours, could you be referring to Li Yaoxiang? Great. Courage. Dare. To directly call second master by given name. The black-clothed person bit down on his teeth tightly, the veins on his forehead bursting out. Having heard what was said, Su Luo started to smile. She squatted down in front of the black-clothed person, looking down at him from above with a smile that was as crafty as a fox's. You should rest assured. Your family's second master is already waiting for you in the underworld since long ago. You guys go down and have a good chat. Having heard what was said, the black-clothed person's complexion immediately became deathly pale. You killed. That's right, your family's second master was killed by me. A pity your Jade Lakesley family will never know. I forgot to tell you. Your family's second master's way of death is the exact same as yours. Once you guys go down there, definitely we'll have a common topic to talk about. Su Luo smiled happily as she started a few fires on his body. The light of the flame reflected on her face, illuminated the high spirits on her face. Senior brother Ice Cube had admonished before that it was very important to destroy the body and wipe away all traces. As a result, the black-clothed person, with his throat cut but still breathing, was burned to death by flames while alive. Seeing Su Luo nimbly light a fire to burn a person alive, Ziyan sucked in a deep breath of air and cast a glance at Su Luo. You are really cruel. A person who is cruel to themselves is what's really called cruel. Su Luo patted her shoulder. How about it, still painful? SSSS. Having been hit on the mark by Su Luo's pat, Ziyan was in so much pain that she sucked in a cold breath of air. You, this woman, not afraid I will die? Pains me to death. Ziyan covered her wound, a layer of sweat seeping out from her bright and clean forehead. I thought you are a real Iron Man, don't feel a bit of pain. Su Luo snickered. With a lift of her hand, she tossed her 2 pills, one big, one small. Small one take it orally, the big one apply externally. It can be regarded that you still have a little conscience. Ziyan gave a cold snort. She took the small one orally and pinched the big one into powder and applied it externally. It's not true, right? The result of treating the wound is so good? Ziyan lifted her head and looked at Su Luo in amazement. You ought to know, there weren't any people that came out from Purgatory City who hadn't seen the world. To say nothing of the fact that Ziyan's position in Purgatory City was also very high. This is rebirth of flesh pill. Ziyan saw her would heal with her naked eyes, then form a scab. When she lifted her head to look at Su Luo, a pleasantly surprised light flashed through her eyes. Su Luo declined to comment. You refined it? Ziyan's normally ancient, deep well-like eyes that had no ripple now had a trace of being moved. Do you think it looks like it was me? Su Luo returned with a question. Doesn't seem like it was you. Ziyan said the truth. If it was really refined by you, Purgatory City would absolutely welcome you. Really? Su Luo smiled faintly. Wait until she had fetched the red acacia seeds and be promoted to advanced apothecary. At that time, she would be qualified to try to refine the rebirth of flesh pill. She still had the primeval pill recipes she inherited from Elder Zihua. She would then be able to refine them sheet by sheet. You have deep enmity with the Jade Lakesley family? Ziyan, while looking at the scar, absent-mindedly asked. The Jade Lakesley family in the future, I will personally exterminate with my own hand. A firm, unwavering determination flashed through Su Luo's eyes that were as resplendent as the stars. The hatred with the Jade Lakesley family was as deep as the ocean. In this lifetime, it would not end if one side didn't die. Then, you killing the black-clothed person was not to save me. It was to take revenge for yourself. Ziyan wasted no time in removing herself from being related to this matter. Su Luo rolled her eyes at her in annoyance. Who asked you to repay this kindness? Really too much. In any case, I do not owe you. I know too long-winded. You slowly heal here, I'll leave first. Saying this, Su Luo got up and walked away. Chapter 8:15. Assassination in the Forest 5. Who knew when Su Luo had walked away for a while, She then discovered Ziyan's figure. Why are you following me? Su Luo frowned. Who is following you? Did I ever tell you where I am going? Ziyan said, reluctant to admit to it. Then, where are you preparing to go to right now? Ziyan casually cast her a glance and pointed to the shallow trace of a path that was walked out. Following along this marked path is relaxing. Su Luo was speechless. That marked path in the grass was clearly the one she created from walking. If you want to follow me, then directly say so. Really awkward. Who is following you? I am only. It's not because you are lost, right? Aren't you from Purgatory City? Su Luo, having heard what was said, opened her eyes wide. Ziyan fiercely returned with a glare. Who set the rules that people from Purgatory City are all masters at finding a path? I certainly am not good at knowing the paths, so what? Then you following me is because you want me to bring you out? Su Luo's pair of gleaming eyes blinked. Ziyan reluctantly nodded her head. Su Luo suddenly laughed. Her smile was as splendid as the blooming summer flowers. She patted Ziyan's slender shoulders and sincerely gave a sigh. Miss, you followed the wrong person because I am also lost. Ziyan foolishly looked at Su Luo with a blank expression. Su Luo seriously nodded and said with a deadly earnest tone, I really am lost. Pfft. The two people exchanged a glance, and unexpectedly, both started to laugh. Until the end, they actually burst out into loud laughter. The two of them were similar in temperament, like birds of a feather, and in this moment of laughing heartily, it pulled closer the distance of a friendship. With great difficulty they stopped laughing. Only now did both of them exchange names. Ziyan spread out her hand. What to do? Where is your goal located? It was rare to come across a young woman to her liking. Ziyan decided to follow Su Luo and mingle along with her. I want to walk towards the Southeast Great Valley. I need to find something there. Southeast Great Valley. Ziyan considered while holding her chin. Okay, seeing that you saved my life, this miss will reluctantly use her last tool to point out the road. After she was finished speaking, Ziyan took out a white paper crane from within her sleeves. This was definitely a crane folded from a piece of paper. It was pure white and lifelike, the living image of a crane, just like a real one. The paper crane was in Ziyan's spread open palm. She lightly blew a breath of air towards the paper crane. What surprised Su Luo was that paper crane suddenly, in a split second, began to move. It blinked its eyes, as if suddenly coming awake from deep sleep. The two wings opened and closed slightly. Very quickly, it flapped its wings and started to fly, flying in one direction at high speed. Let's go Southeast Great Valley. Ziyan's figure was as fast as lightning, and directly chased after the white paper crane. She was deliberately trying to find out Su Luo's cultivation. So in the beginning, she started with 70% of her speed. On the surface, it seemed as if Su Luo was only at the 5th rank. However, what puzzled Ziyan was, at that time when the black-clothed person's great dimensional imprint, which was at the summit of the 7th rank, was about to fiercely smash her. It was like the sound of thunder with the strength of heaven and earth that weighed 150,000 kilograms. Even she wasn't able to block it. But Su Luo was able to block it. Moreover, that black-clothed person, she herself couldn't even kill, but Su Luo could kill him. All of this clearly showed, her cultivation was absolutely not as simple as a 5th rank. Ziyan intended to probe the depth of Su Luo. So at the start, she rapidly increased her speed. Su Luo, who had cultivated the spirit dance steps to the point of perfection, was quick and always had speed as her forte. In terms of attack, she naturally couldn't compare to Ziyan. But with regards to speed, it would be difficult to say. The corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into a shallow smile. Ever since she had arrived on this continent, the people she ran into, if it was not like Li Yaoyao and Su Qing, those noble, aloof and arrogant women, then it was Sushi's kind that were crafty and bossy. Chapter 8:16. Assassination in the Forest 6. Normally, besides Nangong's several childhood friends, she still hadn't made some sincere friends. Today's unintended interference had allowed her to encounter someone with a similar temperament. This greatly improved her mood. Su Luo's feet made full use of spirit dance steps, Momentarily, her dress flew upwards like an elegant fairy, the thin silk waving cleverly. No dirt touched her shoes, going like stepping on a wave. Very quickly, she chased after Ziyan. The two of them went side by side, their speeds were equally matched. One could only hear the sound of the wind blowing at their ear. The two rows of ancient trees continuously retreating back. Su Luo, the paper crane's speed is about to soar, you better not get lost from following. Ziyan smiled happily, once more sending more strength into her foot. Her speed rapidly rose. Her speed was faster than before by a fold. She was already a 7th rank. With Su Luo, there was a huge gap, so in an instant, she had Su Luo behind her. Even though Su Luo was only 5th rank, but she had many fortuitous meetings, so she held many hidden trump cards. One could only see her grab a handful of advanced spirit restoration pills and toss them into her mouth. She once again put more strength into her feet, and once again, she was side by side with Ziyan. Ziyan's head slanted to the side, and seeing those advanced spirit restoration pills in Su Luo's hand, she nearly tripped and fell down. This Su Luo was simply too extravagant, okay? Those were advanced spirit restoration pills. At an auction, they would have sold for a very high price. But this girl would just grab handful after a handful like eating candy, tossing them one by one into her mouth. This was simply too damned, bullying to the point of being intolerable. Really makes a person jealous, okay? This child's family's elder must be a super difficult to deal with apothecary, able to supply her with so much to waste extravagantly. Ziyan completed her evaluation in her heart. However, she completely did not expect that these advanced spirit restoration pills were made by Su Luo's own hand. If Ziyan knew that Su Luo still had a huge pile of this that she had made during practice, even with her identity as an expert from Purgatory City, very likely, both of her eyes would stare blankly. Ziyan in her heart howled in grief. A pair of clever eyes tossed a jealous and envious glance at Su Luo. She used more strength on her feet, using 100% of her strength, and once again raised her speed by a lot. This time it was somewhat difficult for Su Luo. Just now, Su Luo had already raised her spirit dance steps to its highest speed. Now no matter what, she could not speed up even more. Spirit restoration pills could only restore spirit energy, and could not increase her speed. Su Luo's eyes narrowed slightly, both eyes staring fixedly at Ziyan up front and her pair of slim, jade-like legs. Those fast as lightning jade legs, because the speed was simply too fast, therefore gave off double images, one after another. Seeing it made Su Luo's eyes dizzy. Though her eyes became dizzy, but her brain became even more nimble. Suddenly, a light flashed through Su Luo's brain. Teleport. If she could teleport, then her speed would absolutely not be slower than Ziyan. Not stupid. A voice without restraint sounded in Su Luo's mind. Little rotten child? An opinion flashed through Su Luo's mind. You are not allowed to call little grandpa, little rotten child. Little grandpa's age is older than your grandfather's grandfathers and countless number of grandfathers. The little rotten child coldly snorted in displeasure. But his voice was really too cute and young. Even though he tried to maintain a deadly seriousness, but as before, he could not continuously conceal that cute, sticky rice-like, soft little voice. By visual assessment, this child was no more than 7 years old. But this little guy's temper was very bad, so Su Luo decided to follow along and not to lower herself to his level. Then fine, you pick a name for yourself. Is this little grandpa's name something that someone like you can know? The little rotten child became arrogant and proud. Su Luo suddenly fell, lacking in strength. Then you say, what should I call you? Call me little grandpa. The little guy pig-headedly persisted. Little grandpa, your little sister. Su Luo darkly snorted. You boorish woman, really don't have any manners. Chapter 8:17. Assassination in the Forest 7. Humph, then why don't I call you little weakling, little softy? Shut your mouth. Then I'll call you little balls? Fuck. You want to die, right? Little grandpa would never change his name, and do things that would change his surname. I am Di-Shir-Tian. Di-Shir-Tian? Just you this little rotten. Su Luo said her sentence halfway through and suddenly stopped. Di-Shir-Tian. Why did this name sound so familiar? It seemed as if she'd heard it from somewhere before. Sweat. Su Luo finally remembered. That person was previously the #1 gifted person on this continent. The person that soared to the level of a god. Wasn't he called Di Shirtian? However, this little rotten child shouldn't have anything to do with that exceptionally powerful person, right? Although thinking this way, Su Luo was still somewhat on tenterhooks. Then alright, in the future, I'll just call you Little Sky. Out of the question. It's too nauseating. The names Little Sky and Little Sweetie. Pick one out of the two. Tell me your answer. Su Luo laid down these words very confidently. What a joke. Right now, that little guy was trapped within that spirit stone, simply could not get out. Didn't he still have to just let her call him whatever she wants? Hearing Su Luo's threats, the little brat immediately wilted. Panting with rage, he humped coldly several times and proudly turned his face away, disinclined to pay any more attention to Su Luo again. After wasting such tremendous strength, a form of address was finally determined. Oh right. What did you mean with the things you said earlier? Could it be that you can teleport? Su Luo very curiously asked. It was recorded inside the space law book that she took from the Amethyst Fish Palace. Space mages had the ability to teleport. However, this kind of skill wasn't something that every space mage could learn. It depended on aptitude. Earlier, Su Luo watched Ziyan's footsteps and was dazzled. In her mind, she suddenly caught a thread of information. But if she wanted to penetrate deeply again, there was no way for her to begin. Little Sky, hurry up and tell Big Sister. Su Luo used a pleasant tone and manner to say. Humph. Panting with rage, the little guy turned his face away. Di Shirtian, little Grandpa Di. Don't tell me that you don't wish for me to become powerful quickly? If I become powerful earlier, you will also be able to come out earlier. You still dare to mention this? The little guy, in a jittery manner, paced back and forth inside the little stone. If it hadn't been this mannerless and boorish woman that picked up the stone, very quickly, he would have been able to see the light of day again. If one must know, he'd waited century after century. With great difficulty, he finally waited until there was someone that was naturally gifted that was exceptionally good in all aspects. It was easy for him to scold her. Anyway, things have already become like this. You helping me is like helping yourself. Just be resigned to your fate, child. We're in the same boat. Su Luo smiled like a crafty fox. Humph. Naturally, the little guy knew this fact. He said with smothered anger. Fuse the spirit dance steps with space law and you'll naturally be able to teleport. It's just that simple? Su Luo blinked. Simple, what nonsense. Do you know the spirit dance steps? You don't even know how to do the spirit dance steps, how can you fuse it? As a matter of fact, Su Luo wanted to say, could it be that her feet's movement wasn't from the spirit dance steps? However, this was personally presented to her by Lu family's elder at that time. That thing you consider spirit dance steps is just a thread, basically the prelude to spirit dance steps. It's a warm-up exercise, do you understand? What? Hearing that, Su Luo was startled. The spirit dance steps she was so intensely proud of was only just the prelude to the real spirit dance steps, a warm-up exercise? Actually, thinking about it, that should be right. If it was the real spirit dance steps, considering Eastern Ling's Lu family's kind of military strength, how could it have been protected for so many years? It may be assumed that the powerful people all knew, just that they did not even care about this spirit dance steps. Then, do you know where the real spirit dance steps is? Su Luo asked. Chapter 8:18. Assassination in the Forest. 8. Where was the real spirit dance steps? Little Sky tilted his head and pulled out a bit of information from amidst his old memories. Western Jin's imperial family. It was in the Western Jin's imperial family? In the present time, there were 4 nations, with 4 super powerful families in control. Eastern Ling's Nangong family. Southern Wind's Anya family. Western Jin's Ouyang family. Northern Desert Xianyuan family. These 4 countries, every one of them had a super strong person keeping watch, and also had super influential families to assist. For example, Eastern Ling Nation's Nangong family had Jade Lakesley family to assist. Under their joint powerful alliance, the foundation was firm. Consequently, the strength between the four nations was equal. It was in a balanced state. So normally, they lived together in harmony. However, there were also bad relations between certain nations. For example, Eastern Ling and Western Jin. Due to territorial disputes, their relationship had always been strained. Furthermore, their borders were in continuous conflict. Western Jin. It seemed that if she had time, she ought to take a walk to Western Jin. This speed of yours is seriously too slow. Look at her. She has run and now has long since vanished. Little Sky reproached Su Luo. But I'm only at the 5th rank. 5th rank, so what? When I, little grandpa, was of the 5th rank. Forget it. A real man doesn't boast about his past achievements. Just remember these few lines well. Sky delivered a section of a script into Su Luo's mind. This is the first form of spirit dance steps. Little Sky said coldly. Su Luo suspiciously cast that chunk of spirit stone a glance. Little Sky guessed what she was thinking and said coldly. In those days, little grandpa and Western Jin's ancestor walked together to the other end of the world. I more or less know a bit about it. What's so strange about it? Hearing him talk about it like that, Su Luo found it even more strange. Western Jin's ancestor, that was a matter from many years ago. Really didn't know just what sort of unforeseen events had happened to the body of the rotten child inside this stone. Based on Little Sky's mnemonic chant, Su Luo ran while also practicing it. Because at the start Su Luo had already learned the introductory method to spirit dance steps, so learning this first form was as natural as the flow of water. In the beginning, admittedly, there was a lot of knocking and bumping about. Su Luo also nearly tripped, but very quickly, she gradually entered into a most pleasant stage. After an incense stick's worth of time passed, Su Luo finally saw Ziyan's figure. This girl was free and easy, sitting up on the branch of a tree with one leg over the other, full of interest as she watched Su Luo come running while staggering along. Her mouth was hooked up with a touch of interest. Even slower than a snail. I've been waiting until I nearly fell asleep. Su Luo cast her a glare. Then go ahead and sleep. As she talked, she wiped away that layer of fine sweat on her forehead, and found a shadowy spot to sit down. Then with a wave of her hand, the tables and chairs were all arranged properly. With another wave of her sleeve, a pot of still steaming hot snake soup appeared in front of her. Because the time inside the space was slowed down by tenfold, the snake soup she made before was still giving off hot steam. The moment she smelled it, Ziyan, who was originally pretending to doze off, suddenly could not stay still. Like a wisp of smoke, she came down from the tree, excitedly moving closer to it. I ate every kind of pot, bowl, ladle, basin, and furthermore, such piping hot snake soup. Delicious, oh delicious. She rubbed her hands somewhat excitedly. Su Luo unhappily handed her a clean porcelain bowl. Do you have a space bag? That's truly great. Ziyan scooped out a bowlful of snake soup for herself, and drank it down with gulping sounds in a single breath. These few days of being chased to be killed made her quite pitiful. Where did she have the time to find something to eat? The pitiful her was so hungry. She nearly dug out tree roots to gnaw on. Space bag, Su Luo said non-committally. Actually, she really did not know what a space bag was. Sweat. It said that this year, the continent had space bags that appeared. It appeared in the biggest auction house of the four nations. Unfortunately, I got there too late and did not get to see it. Chapter 819. Assassination in the Forest 9. Really good tasting snake soup. Ziyan once again scooped out a bowl of soup for herself. This time, she was not as impatient as before, but tasted it sip by sip. Space bag just appeared this year? Su Lu's eyes narrowed slightly. But don't know why, there hasn't been any for many years before. But just appeared within this year. The space bag suddenly appeared. Ziyan shook her head. However, the auction price was very expensive. Normal people certainly could not win the auction for it. However, only a space mage can make a space bag, but space mages are now nearly extinct on the continent. Being expensive is also normal. Ziyan nodding her head as if it was only right. Only a space mage can create a space bag, and space mages were nearly extinct on this continent. Sulu narrowed her eyes slightly and a light flashed on in her mind. Beautiful teacher was a space mage. With his ability, creating a space bag would be no effort at all. Plus, the space bags only appeared within this year. Perhaps this was done by beautiful teacher? To hide the fact that she was a space mage? Just when Sulu was guessing at this, Ziyan slowly said, "Which big family did you come from? Spirit restoration pills eaten like candy, with space bag in your possession. Don't you think your family's elder spoils you too much? Aren't they afraid that you at the 5th rank would get everything stolen?" Sulu rolled her eyes at her in displeasure. "Aren't you a 7th rank? You have the ability to steal these from me?" Ziyan immediately had no words to say. In fact, don't know which powerful family taught this evildoer of a girl. Her 5th rank was definitely placed out there to deceive people. She was certain that this girl definitely had no match among the 5th rank. 50% odds that she could defeat a 6th rank. Also some odds she could kill a 7th rank. No idea which old monster had taught you into a little monster. But once you mature, ha ha ha. The Jade Lakesley family will have a lot of troubles. Ziyan clearly remembered. Sulu once had said that she wanted to exterminate the Jade Lakesley family. That's right. Your cup. Take it out and let's have a look. Ziyan's words reminded Sulu. Didn't Ziyan just steal a cup from the Jade Lakesley family? The result was her being chased like a homeless dog? Ziyan casually took out the cup from her dress pocket and placed it on the table for Sulu to enjoy. Sulu stared at it with concentration. This cup's entire body was made from white porcelain, translucent and crystal-like, emitting radiance like the luster of gems. At this moment, there was a thick layer of water droplets on the wall of the cup. Sulu looked at it carefully and discovered that it was as senior brother had once said. This was low-grade celestial spirit water. Based on this condensation speed, it could only produce 3 drops a day. Ziyan proudly raised the cup up, made a toasting gesture, and tilted her head back. She then poured these 3 droplets of low-grade celestial spirit water into her mouth. It is really the most delicious thing on earth. Ziyan satisfiedly licked her lips and saw how Sulu kept staring at her without blinking. She felt a bit embarrassed and stuck out her tongue. You can drink the condensed out ones tomorrow. Respect the person who gave you food and not bite their hand. Ziyan had just drank Sulu's snake soup, but she just drank the 3 droplets of celestial spirit water alone. It was somewhat impolite. Finished speaking, Ziyan was just about to put the cup away. Just at this moment, an unforeseen incident suddenly occurred. One could only see a little white dragon flew out from Sulu's sleeves with a speed that would astonish people. Nearly in the blink of an eye, his small body attacked towards that cup. When Ziyan returned to her senses, she was suddenly alarmed. Where is my celestial spirit cup? This was the precious treasure of the Jade Lakesley family had handed down the celestial spirit cup. But where was this celestial spirit cup right now? Of course, it was in the little divine dragon's arms. But, where was the little divine dragon right now? Naturally, the little divine dragon had retreated back into Sulu's sleeves. Seeing the little dragon tightly holding the celestial spirit cup in his arms with a death grip, made Sulu somewhat frustratedly place her hand on her forehead. Why did this little rotten child always steal other people's treasure that he saw? Who spoiling taught him this bad habit? Chapter 820, Celestial Spirit Cup, 1. The little divine dragon's bad habit, naturally, was Sulu's, this lawless master, accomplishment. This nature had already taken form. It would be very difficult to change back. Ziyan bewilderedly stared at Sulu. My cup. Sulu helplessly grabbed the little divine dragon by his neck and directly pulled him out and placed him on the table. Quickly return the cup, you hear me? Dragon, dragon, dragon? Ziyan clearly saw that the one holding the cup with his whole body curled up like a little ball was a dragon. Her normally calm appearance and voice started stuttering. You even raise a dragon as a spirit pet? Ziyan was so excited that she almost choked on her own saliva. Compared to Ziyan's excitement, Sulu seemed very calm. Sulu casually gestured her hand for Ziyan to calm down, and then she patiently instructed the little divine dragon, step by step. Good boy, this is Sister Ziyan's treasure, let us return it, okay? The little divine dragon held the cup tightly. He looked at Su Luo with a taut and guarded expression as he shook his head as if his life depended on it. Su Luo took a deep breath in frustration. You can't casually take other people's precious treasures. Quickly be a good boy and return the cup. The little divine dragon guardedly looked at Su Lu. Both of his hands and feet had a death grip on the celestial spirit cup. Su Luo gracefully placed her hand on her forehead. This foolish boy, did he really think that like this he could hide the celestial spirit cup? Really stupid. In the beginning when he stole the thing, he should have run into Su Luo's space, running away like a wisp of smoke. Who would have known? Now he got caught red-handed. He still wouldn't let go of the stolen goods. How did she raise such an idiotic and foolish little dragon? If the venerable divine dragon father was to find out that Su Luo had raised the little divine dragon to be so idiotic, don't know if he would kill her with the hammering of one fist. Ziyan's face was full of tangled emotions. Little dragon was so lovely, so cute and adorable. If it was anything else, without hesitation, she would directly give it to him. But she had a use for the celestial spirit cup. She had taken that cup to save a person. As a result, she moved close, coaxing the little divine dragon. Good boy, just wait for Sister Ziyan to scrap together a bottle of celestial spirit water, after taking it to save a person. Then I'll give you this cup, okay? Ziyan slowly stretched her hands out while coaxing the little divine dragon. The little divine dragon's pair of huge, innocent and perplexed eyes blinked a few times and suspiciously looked at Ziyan. He watched until her hands stretched out. Then the little divine dragon gave an unhappy snort. He turned around and directly ran into Su Luo's sleeve. All of a sudden he disappeared. Su Luo shrugged her shoulders and hopelessly said, just this kind of bad temperament, coaxing is no good, scolding also doesn't work. Even beating him won't make him better. Ziyan speechlessly tossed Su Luo a glance. It's fortunate that the little divine dragon's nature was good, otherwise, meeting such a conniving master, how much worse would his nature become? Do the words you just said still count? Recalling what Ziyan just said, Su Luo's eyes narrowed slightly, the corner of her mouth slowly hooking up. What words? Ziyan felt her hair standing on end from Su Luo's gaze. Wait until you scrape together enough for a bottle of celestial spirit water. Then we'll gift the cup to my family's little dragon. These words, do they still count? Su Luo's mouth curved up slightly, beaming with a smile, like a cunning fox. Ziyan guardedly looked at Su Luo. A pair of quick-witted, beautiful eyes seized up Su Luo from head to toe. Then she dismantled it word by word. She analyzed each word she said. In the end, she still tilted her head and thought for a long time. Su Luo frowned. Do I really look like such a bad person? Otherwise, why would she analyze this for such a long time? You don't just look like one, but you are one. Ziyan unhappily said. To be honest, after seeing you set up the trap to kill the black-clothed guy, it reminded me of someone. Who? Su Luo curiously asked. Chapter 821, Celestial Spirit Cup. 2. Ziyan's heart that was full of bitter water was poured out. My third senior brother, he is simply too two-faced. Just being a little careless, and you would be sold and still help him count the money. Honestly, the feeling you give me seems like the long-lost younger sister of my third senior brother. Why do you say so? Su Lu rolled her eyes in annoyance. Your two-faced evilness is there from your mother's womb. Simply just like a cunning little fox, just a little carelessness and would be schemed against. Ziyan snorted twice. Su Lu's heart had a bit of guilty conscience and glanced away. Truth be told, she really was trying to scheme against this girl. Very quickly, Su Luo's pure and good expression was restored and reminded Ziyan. Stop tilting your head. Do your words from earlier still count? Su Luo naturally was pointing to Ziyan's promise to the little divine dragon. Once said, even a team of horses can't chase it back. As long as I can scrape together a bottle of celestial spirit water, then this cup, I will give it to you. Ziyan heroically patted her chest. It need not be said, that place of hers was really something to be proud of. Okay, then you take this. Su Luo casually gave her a bottle full of celestial spirit water. Ziyan's expression froze slightly. Ziyan's eyes fell on Su Luo's hands, and then went up until they finally ended up on Su Luo's face. This. She could so casually take out a full bottle of celestial spirit water? Didn't you say that once you have a bottle of celestial spirit water, you wouldn't pursue the cup anymore? Su Luo checkmated her. Ziyan stared at Su Luo with a complicated expression, and in a daze, received the sparkling and pure bottle of celestial spirit water. This girl seriously was really rich, really extravagant, and really generous. Ziyan silently opened that bottle. Right after opening it, a fresh and pure spiritual essence immediately rushed out. This is not the Jade Palace's celestial spirit water. Ziyan took a deep breath, and felt her heart beating so fiercely with ba thump sounds. She carefully poured out a drop on her tongue. Immediately, she felt an indescribable spirit force rush from her chest to her belly. A warm current slowly rushed to her pubic region. Oh shit. This. Ziyan was so excited that she burst out with foul language. At this point, Ziyan really could not use any words to describe her excited feeling. She could only stare at Su Luo foolishly for quite a while. She was unable to speak. Su Luo, who was being looked at by her, had a somewhat indescribable feeling. Isn't it just a bottle of celestial spirit water? Why are you so excited? Isn't it just a bottle of celestial spirit water? Do you fucking think this is common celestial spirit water? The Jade Lakesley family's celestial spirit water, compared to this, is simply plain boiled water. Ziyan wished she could lift Su Luo up by the collar and give her a good lesson. A smiling expression flashed through Su Luo's eyes. This metaphor really made her burst with joy, and her mood became really good. Since it is so good, then you should keep it. But that cup, I won't be giving it back to you. Su Luo smilingly said. This kind of celestial spirit water, she had plenty in her space. The little divine dragon even extravagantly fetched it to bathe in. But this bottle was only the size of a finger, and was already able to pacify this girl. It was really easy. Right, even if you want to use the cup to exchange with me, I wouldn't want to do the exchange. Ziyan directly placed that bottle of celestial spirit water in her chest pocket. Su Luo silently laughed in her heart, but her expression on the surface seemed very innocent. Nothing to be done. Who told my family's little dragon to like the cup so much? Eating a little loss, then we'll just have to eat it. In Ziyan's eyes, this exchange, she did indeed receive a huge profit. Seeing Su Luo like this, Ziyan felt a little bit of guilt, so her heart being uneasy, she suggested. Then this time, the things we acquire in the dark forest all belong to you? Su Luo frowned, silently glanced at Ziyan, then weakly said, this way. Doesn't seem right? What was called got off cheaply and still flaunt it? Su Luo was giving everyone such a lesson, live at the scene. Chapter 822, Celestial Spirit Cup 3. Why would it not be appropriate? Before, the matter with the high-grade celestial spirit water made you eat a loss. If I don't make it up to you, my heart won't be peaceful. Do you want this matter to become a demon in my heart? The good and honest Ziyan blinked her clear, pitch-black eyes to persuade Su Luo. Su Luo somewhat reluctantly sighed. Then it can only be this way. Seeing this, Ziyan finally let go of the guilt in her heart. This snake soup is really delicious. Then you should eat some more. Su Luo smiled. At the same time, when Su Luo was talking with Ziyan, an intense quarrel was also in progress inside Su Luo's space. However, this quarrel was very strange, because there was only one voice arguing noisily. The other party just had his innocent eyes open wide, staring foolishly and blankly at that stone. This matter had to be explained from the start. After Su Luo used the celestial spirit water to exchange for the cup, that cup then justifiably belonged to the little divine dragon. However, the little divine dragon had only just gotten into her space, and then met with someone blocking his way to rob him. That chunk of lousy stone's voice maliciously abused in an unpleasant manner. Leave this cup behind. The little divine dragon opened his eyes wide and looked all over the place for the voice. Looking at where fart. Little grandpa is just below your claw. The lousy stone was on the verge of a violent rage. The little divine dragon only then realized that it was unexpectedly stepping on an ugly and extremely loathsome stone. Hurry up, place me inside the cup. The lousy stone instructed roughly, asking help from someone to do something, but using this manner of coarse tone. The lousy stone was definitely on the rhythm of courting death. However, the little divine dragon was a good child, so he did not take offense. The little divine dragon glanced at the stone perplexedly, turned his head and wanted to leave. Stand still. Hurry up and place me in that cup to soak for a while. You little foolish dragon, are you deaf? The lousy stone's attitude had always been irascible and vile. A trace of suspicion flashed across the little divine dragon's pair of clear eyes. He looked foolishly at that stone. This lousy stone completely did not know how to exercise restraint, and was still over there, jabbering out commands. So noisy. The corner of the little divine dragon's mouth pouted slightly. This cup belonged to him. He definitely wouldn't give the cup away. However, the little stone was always giving off steam. It was probably too hot. Don't keep hoping that the little divine dragon's simple brain could think more complicatedly. His brainwaves were created in the shape of a straight line. Quickly. When the proud petite figure inside the lousy stone saw that the little divine dragon was still as blank as before, he urged loudly. The cup was something he definitely wouldn't give. However, the little stone was also very pitiful, about to burn up soon. Consequently, the pure, kind-hearted and willing to help others little divine dragon ran over to the lousy stone like a wisp of smoke and raised up his back right leg. The tiny figure inside the stone was shocked stupid by this movement of the little divine dragon. Only after quite a while did he return to his senses and shout loudly, "Don't!" But it was already too late. The little divine dragon had already released a stream of urine onto the stone. Ah! After the tiny figure inside the stone was able to react, it suddenly broke out into a thunderous bellow that frightened the heavens and the earth and made supernatural beings sob. You loathsome little dragon, foolish little dragon, stupid little dragon, 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 your sister's damn dragon. You actually dared to urinate on little grandpa. Wait, after this little grandpa comes out, you're dead. You just wait for little grandpa. Ah! So noisy. The little divine dragon pursed his small mouth. He had already helped the little stone extinguish the fire and lower its temperature. Why was the little stone still angry like this? The little divine dragon flattened his small mouth. Both of his eyes were pure, innocent and bewildered. Extremely smelly, extremely smelly, extremely smelly. Ah! Why haven't you already hurried to wash this little grandpa? Hurry up and bring me to be washed and scrubbed. Ah! Author's recommendation. Recommend. A Good Friends just started. New book. The absolutely pampered and two-faced imperial concubine. It's a work with a lot of strength. I really like it. Chapter 823. Celestial Spirit Cup 4. The little stone was the one that was truly the most smelly. The little divine dragon also had a temper. Being cursed by someone but unable to retort back verbally, then just retaliate physically. As a result, our little divine dragon, who had always been obedient and well-behaved, extended that robust little claw from his calf. Facing that stone, it directly launched it with a long-distance shot. Whoosh! The little stone that was still carefreely jabbering out abuse became a throwing object that was launched by the little divine dragon and flew far away. As for where it flew to, who knew? Little Sky's voice, jabbering on shouts of abuse, could be heard from a distance. But because the distance from it had grown so far, it could not be heard clearly. The little divine dragon simply did not give it any more attention. At this time, Su Luo, who was in a spirit state, entered into her space. And where is little Sky? Su Luo glanced left and right, looked for quite a while but still did not find that stone. She remembered that previously, this was where she'd placed it. Could it be that she remembered wrongly? The little divine dragon pulled back his neck guiltily. A pair of clear eyes, pitch black as ink, stared fixedly at Su Luo. What's wrong? Su Luo sat down on the ground opposite of him, reached out her hand to stroke his little head. The little divine dragon tilted his little face and thought for a while. In the end, he still lifted up that cup with both claws to give to Su Luo. Giving this to me? Su Luo pointed at her own nose. The little divine dragon nodded seriously. Su Luo took that cup, looked over it carefully, up, down, left and right, but still did not find anything strange. Isn't it just a cup that exudes low-grade celestial spirit water? Are we still lacking in celestial spirit water? Is it worth treasuring this much, clinging to it so rigidly and not letting go? Su Luo sized up that cup with doubt. The little divine dragon's little claw snatched away the cup in Su Luo's hand, and immediately tossed it towards the ground. Hey, I say, you this child, who did you learn this bad temperament from? Su Luo had not finished speaking, when she saw that in the midst of that white jade cup's shattered fragments, a yellow paper was flying directly towards her. This is... Once Su Luo grabbed hold of the yellow paper, she just took one glance and then stopped. For a moment, the hand holding that piece of yellow paper trembled slightly. This is a map fragment to the secluded necropolis of the gods. Su Luo's eyes were filled with astonishment. It was simply hard to believe. This was actually a map fragment to the secluded necropolis of the gods. For a moment, Su Luo stood there rigidly. The nice surprise that filled her throat seemed to want to gush out. Su Luo took out another piece of the map fragment from inside a secret shelf in her space. These two fragments seemed to have a kind of imperceptible force of attraction. The two fragments flew into the air, suddenly twisting and dancing in the wind, and finally, actually glued together tightly. After that, the two joined as one piece of paper once again flew back into Su Luo's hand. You, this little thing, couldn't be that you have known since long ago that this cup concealed a map fragment, right? Su Luo looked at the little divine dragon with a complicated gaze. The little divine dragon ran bashfully into Su Luo's embrace. His little butt turned and twisted, appearing extremely shy. No wonder you clung to that cup so tightly and did not let go. So actually it turns out, you have a unique all-seeing mind, hee. Su Luo's rubbed his head, in a very happy mood. Don't know for how long this white jade cup had stayed in the Jade Lakesley family. Afterwards, it was stolen by that girl Ziyan. What a pity, oh what a pity. What a pity that they all didn't know that this cup was actually not the most precious treasure. The real precious thing was the map of the secluded necropolis of the gods concealed inside the cup. The secluded necropolis of the gods map fragment was the real priceless treasure. The celestial spirit water simply could not be compared on the same level with it. It was said that the secluded continent was an existence that transcended the endless months and years of time. It was said that the people who came out from that place, even if they were the most ordinary people, they could exterminate any of this continent's nations as they wished with one move. Yes, that's right, any ordinary person was able to accomplish such a thing. It could clearly be seen how mystical an existence the secluded continent was. Chapter 824, Celestial Spirit Cup 5. It's just that back in those days, there was a war on the secluded continent among the strong experts. In the end, almost all of them staked it all and died together. Their corpses were buried in the secluded necropolis of the gods. Not just the corpses, but even their many weapons and the life-saving talismans that were on their bodies were all buried there. Not even mentioning the talismans, if one could pull out a weapon and return to this continent, that person could definitely proclaim themselves as king. Legend said that the map of the secluded necropolis of the gods was divided into 4 parts. And so, as chance would have it, 2 of the pieces were in Su Luo's hands. The corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked up slightly, and the tip of her brow pulsed. As if remembering that day when Nangong Luyan had mockingly said to her, I really suspect that someday, with your eyes closed, the hidden treasure map will automatically fly to in front of you. Previously, Su Luo had thought it was a joke and merely dismissed it with a laugh. Now looking at the hidden treasure map that had automatically flown into her hand and joined together as one, Su Luo's smile grew increasingly splendid. Just when Su Luo was joyfully satisfied, Ziyan shook her body. Hey, wake up, wake up. Su Luo could only put away her feeling of excitement, and her spirit floated out of her space. She opened her somewhat dazed eyes. What is it? Ziyan glared at her unhappily. This girl was also a careless person. Her body had many treasures. Yet she was sleeping and snoring in front of a friend she'd only known for one day, completely unguarded. Fortunately, she wasn't a vile person, otherwise, they would have already swung a knife at this girl's neck and snatched away the treasure to escape without a trace. Ziyan reminded her about her life. I say you should be a little bit guarded against other people, okay? It is dangerous around the whole country. Otherwise, in the future, you won't even know how you died. Su Luo laughed, nodding to state yes. Actually, in regards to being on guard, who could be more serious than her? It's just that Su Luo's gaze when looking at people was very accurate. She knew Ziyan wasn't that kind of greedy person of low character. There's a sound. Su Luo suddenly stood up. A burst of fragmented sounds of footsteps came closer from afar. They were walking towards their direction. Ziyan nodded her head. One merely saw her nimbly climb up to the top of a tree and hide her body. With her right hand screening off her forehead, she held the pose of gazing into the distance. Very quickly she came down with a whoosh sound. It's people from the Luoyu Palace Hall. They are also going towards the southeastern Great Valley. Ziyan's eyes narrowed dangerously. A trace of cold intent flashed across her pitch-black pupils. Luoyu Palace Hall. Su Luo muttered to herself. In her memories, Luoyu Palace Hall was a symbolic alternative name. She only knew that among the one city, 2 palace halls, 3 palaces and 4 sacred places, Luoyu Palace Hall, with Beichen Palace Hall, ranked as the number 2 palace hall. Able to stand side by side with the Beichen family, it was clear that Luoyu Palace Hall's strength was not lacking. However, seeing Ziyan's expression, it seemed that she had some considerable dislike towards Luoyu Palace Hall. Not waiting for Su Luo to ask, Ziyan frowned. Luoyu Palace Hall has always been in a snake and rat den with the Jade Lakesley family, acting in collusion. How good can they be? To say it even more simply, Luoyu Palace Hall's Madame Luo is Li Yaoyao's biological aunt. The Luo family and the Li family have an in-laws relationship, usually forming a group together. Madame Luo is Li Yaoyao's biological aunt? Su Luo's impression of Madame Luo and Luoyu Palace Hall, in an instant, became bad. Ziyan's brows creased even more tensely. Furthermore, looking at their route, they also seem to be going towards the southeastern Great Valley. This time, it'll be troublesome for you. The southeastern Great Valley is so big. We won't necessarily run into them, right? That is not for certain. You have to know they produce apothecaries in the Luoyu Palace Hall, and they have also come prepared. Ziyan smiled happily as she looked at Su Luo. Then why waste time on senseless talk, let's just hurry. With a single wave of her hand, Su Luo put away all of those things. She carried out the first form of spirit dance steps, and her speed immediately flew like a whirlwind. At the start, Ziyan was still able to smile, but after a while, her smile turned rigid at the corner of her mouth. __author's words. Went out to eat food, came home and estimated that I could still count. Children, don't forget to go see the absolutely pampered two-faced imperial concubine. Chapter 825, Variant Red Acacia Tree 1. She suddenly discovered that Su Luo's speed had rapidly soared within such a short while. Ziyan didn't believe it. To increase one's speed so fully was a shock. However, before, she had used all her strength and was able to beat Su Luo steadily. But now, she had soared to 100% of her speed, yet could only helplessly look on as Su Luo was up ahead by an arm's length. No matter what, she could not catch up to her. This was simply too strange. This was merely the effort of a meal's time. How could her speed have risen so dramatically? If it was to say that in this 2-hour period, Su Luo had successfully learned the martial arts, making her speed increase dramatically, she absolutely would not believe it. Then there was only one explanation for this matter. Su Luo, since the beginning, was hiding it. Before, it wasn't because she couldn't chase and catch up to her, rather, she had deliberately slowed her speed. Yes, it was definitely like this. But another problem once again came tightly following this one. On the surface, this girl seemed to be 5th rank, but in fact, her speed differed very little compared to hers. Ziyan was immediately speechless. In Purgatory City, her talent was also considered first class, but in this lifetime, she hadn't seen a girl that was as full of mystery as this one. Along the way, several times, Ziyan wanted to test her with challenging speed, but all of it ended in failure. In the end, she could only accept her fate. Didn't know after how much time had passed, under the guidance of the paper crane, the two people finally arrived at the southeastern Great Valley. Thump, a loud sound echoed. The paper crane that was leading the way fell to the ground, its whole body bursting into flames. Finally, it turned into a puff of smoke that faded away into the air. The final paper crane is used up. Ziyan carelessly shrugged her shoulders. Afterwards, it would all depend on Su Luo. From now on it will depend on you. You ought to be able to bring me out of here. Originally, Ziyan had wanted to use that paper crane to bring her out of the dark forest. Now it was used to find the path for Su Luo. Are you sure you want me to lead the way? Su Luo was all smiles as she raised an eyebrow. Her only weakness was that her sense of direction was no good. If you ask her to lead the way, she highly doubted that she would walk out of this dark forest within 10 years. Ziyan's face was full of astonishment as she foolishly stared at Su Luo. Su Luo suddenly smiled. Fine, in any case I will take you out of here. Now take me to find the red acacia seeds. Anyway, with senior brother Ice Cube here, what was she afraid of? Su Luo thought about it, and finally still let the little divine dragon out. At the same time, she murmured a few sentences in his ear. After the secluded necropolis of the gods Maps Matter, Su Luo had complete confidence in the little divine dragon's treasure hunting ability, the red acacia seeds. The little divine dragon dug up his encyclopedia-sized inherited memories. He searched the endless ocean of knowledge for any information on the red acacia seeds. The dragon race had always had this saying of inherited knowledge. Inherited knowledge, as the name implied, was the knowledge passed on from the previous generation to the next one. After the little divine dragon had grown out of infancy, his inherited memories followed along and was awakened. Only, this child was too lazy to flip through the inherited knowledge. Suddenly, the little divine dragon's eyes brightened. Awoo awoo. The little divine dragon raised his head and howled excitedly towards Su Luo. Su Luo patted his little head. Don't forget, you are the most precious little divine dragon from the dragon race. All day long, if you are learning how to howl like a dog or learning to howl like a wolf, in the future, how can I, as your owner, face your old man that has such high expectations? The little divine dragon gave an awoo, and adorably licked Su Luo's palm, looking especially cute. Only after this did he scatter all four limbs, and with flying speed, went deep into the jungle on the left side. Let's go, quickly follow. Su Luo tugged at Ziyan, who was lost in thought. It's not something I want to say, your family's dragon. Before Ziyan finished speaking, Su Luo's figure had already disappeared from the place she was standing. Alas! Ziyan sighed in secret. She condensed her spirit strength, and quickly followed behind Su Luo. Chapter 826, Variant Red Acacia Tree, 2. This dark forest hid the sky, and covered the earth with thriving vegetation. In a blink of an eye, a person would disappear. But she was hoping Su Luo could bring her out. Ziyan was suspended far in the rear. She used her last inner strength, but still could not catch up. For a moment, she could not help but feel somewhat discouraged. The little divine dragon was running very fast at the front. Fortunately, Su Luo had a spirit contract with him, and could feel his position. Otherwise, she would definitely have gotten lost while following him. When Su Luo arrived, she just so happened to see the little divine dragon stand on a weirdly shaped tree. He was standing on tiptoe with his little butt sticking out as he picked at a fruit. This was a tree that was as tall as a person. Its entire body was red throughout, with its branches and leaves shaped as stripes, floating and shaking in the wind, similar to a willow tree's leaves. On its body, there were 5 huge fruits. Every one of them was as big as an infant's fist. Seeing that scarlet red fruit, Su Luo's eyes turned, and a touch of fascinated radiance flashed across them. Could it be the legendary red acacia seeds? A panting Ziyan appeared behind Su Luo. Heavens, what is this thing? Red acacia seeds? It doesn't look like it. Ziyan cried out in surprise, ran up a few steps to it and clicked her tongue in amazement. You also feel that it doesn't look like it? Su Luo stood beside her with her gaze staring fixedly at that plump, glistening, scarlet-red fruit. I've seen red acacia seeds before. They're only the size of a fingernail. How could it be so big? It's simply too mystical. Although Ziyan was talking to Su Luo, her pair of eyes was still staring fixedly at that fruit tree. Su Luo frowned slightly. She had never seen the real red acacia seeds before, having only seen them before in books. Thus, she was somewhat uncertain about this thing. Hey, could it be a variant of an acacia tree? A miraculous light flashed in Ziyan's mind. Suddenly, she quivered and grabbed Su Luo's hand. A variant acacia tree? A light flashed on in Su Luo's mind. A variant acacia tree, compared to the ones with no variations. Wasn't the value tenfold higher? For a moment, the two people exchanged a look. Neither of them were able to say anything. Just at this strangely tranquil moment, suddenly, the sound of the little divine dragon, Awuowenji, rang out. Little foolish dragon, what's wrong with you? Su Luo asked impatiently. At the start, she'd seen him sticking out his little, but to pluck that variant red acacia seed. But she did not see him come down after he had plucked it for a long time. It bit me. The little guy felt very wronged. He flattened his little mouth, and there were tears in his pitch-black and limpid eyes. He looked extremely pitiful. Unable to bear it, Su Luo looked over at his finger. As expected, she saw a smear of scarlet bloodstain. And at this moment, the little divine dragon's claw was still being held by that fruit. Could it be that this variant red acacia seeds could even suck blood? Does the bite hurt? Then release it. We will find another way. Su Luo said softly. It bit me and won't let my paw go. The little divine dragon was very innocent, and also very bewildered. A pair of huge eyes wept and wanted to sob. Seeing this scene, Su Luo and Ziyan's hearts all grew soft. Although Ziyan could not make sense of what the little divine dragon was wailing about, however, seeing his aggrieved little appearance, her heart just became unbearably soft. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Big sister will come save you. Ziyan quickly stepped forward and reached out her hand towards that huge red acacia seed to remove it. However, before she even touched the red acacia seed, those willow branch-like vines on the acacia tree suddenly whipped towards Ziyan. Its speed was astonishingly quick, practically in the blink of an eye. Ziyan's heart was greatly alarmed and withdrew her hand with flying speed. However, the back of her hand had still gained a scarlet stripe. Chapter 827, Variant Red Acacia Tree 3. It looked like she'd been whipped by a whip. It dripped with blood, so deep that the bone could be clearly seen. Su Luo's long, shapely eyebrows knitted together and she asked with deep concern. How is it? Are you still okay? With lingering fear, Ziyan said. This speed is simply too scary. I simply had no time to avoid it. Able to force Ziyan into being unable to avoid it, clearly, it could be seen how solid this acacia tree's strength was. Just right at this time, a burst of footsteps could be heard coming near from afar. Faintly, there was also the sounds of conversation. Second brother, it's right just up ahead. The last time, when my school came out to learn through experience, it was me who secretly discovered it. It was the voice of a girl who was joyfully satisfied. You've done pretty well. It was an indifferent and arrogant tone that had a trace of spoiling. Second brother, do you think it really is a variant acacia tree? Not necessarily. If it really is a variant acacia tree, how great would it be? Then big brother can be promoted to advanced apothecary. To survey the entire continent, like big brother, at such a young age and able to enter the ranks of advanced apothecary, there isn't one that even exists. Grandmaster Rong Yin entered elite apothecary at age 20. The male's indifferent voice held a trace of envy. Humph. Don't even know what sort of eyesight Grandmaster Rong Yin has. Big brother having such good aptitude, and he still doesn't want. And the result, I heard he, for lack of a better option, finally had to accept an elementary apothecary. Truly a loss of face. The male's always indifferent voice also could not hold back to sneer coldly. If I'd lost to Yao Yao, I would have just admitted it. But losing to such an unknown loathsome girl, it's truly hard to swallow. That's right. I don't even know what kind of luck that Su Luo has to actually be able to take big sister Yao Yao's place. Just thinking about it makes me angry. The voices grew closer and closer, closer and closer. Ziyan silently glanced at Su Luo, silently glanced at her again, then silently glanced at her once more. The corner of Su Luo's mouth parted slightly as she gracefully supported her forehead with her hand. If you wish to ask if that person in their conversation, being lifted up high and able to receive the mandate of heaven, is me, Ziyan nodded repeatedly, expressing that this was precisely what she wanted to ask. Then congratulations to you. You've unexpectedly received the blessings of 3 lifetimes, to be together with such a lucky young woman, as you leave home to make your way in the dark forest. Su Luo beamed with all smiles as she looked at her. Ziyan slapped Su Luo's shoulder in annoyance. Just the rough points would have been enough, but you still boasted. Just right at this time, the people up ahead had already approached. Luoyu Palace Hall was determined to win this time, so the experts they brought were truly a great number. Leading them was a tall and long-figured, arrogant youngster, dressed in a red embroidered gown, handsome facial features, a cold and firm outline. His pair of eyes was even more icily arrogant, noble and virtuous. He would casually stand anywhere as he wished, and the temperature of the surroundings seemed like it would immediately drop to the freezing point. At his side was a girl in a white princess dress, visually estimated to be 15 or 16 years of age. This young lady had an oval-shaped face, skin like condensed amber, even fairer than snow. She had a pair of huge and clear eyes. She lacked a little pure kind-heartedness, but had a trace of pampered ruthlessness. Behind them, a grandiose group of martial artists followed. Seeing their strength, it wasn't low at all. Su Luo and Ziyan glanced at each other, and both shook their heads slightly. This time, it would be troublesome. That white-clothed girl saw Su Luo and immediately shouted coldly, "Who are you guys? What are you guys doing here?" Ziyan unhurriedly crossed her arms and glanced at her. Luo Die, such large and awe-inspiring authority. The moment Luo Die saw Ziyan, her eyes contracted slightly. You are. Luo Die felt that the person before her was somewhat familiar, but as to who this was specifically, she couldn't say it. Once you get rid of the scab, you forget the pain. It seems that it really is like this. Ziyan glanced at her leisurely. Chapter 828, Variant Red Acacia Tree 4. A resentful expression flashed across Luo Die's face, and her finger furiously pointed at Ziyan. Ziyan! It turned out to be you. Your memory is not bad. Looks like you still haven't forgotten me, oh. Ziyan, laughing happily, said, What, now are you here to fight with me over territory? Luo Die's eyes narrowed, and gave a heavy humph. She turned around and directly walked to her brother's side. On this continent, there were 10 powerful forces. The relationship among them was complicated and very tricky. Among the younger generation, there was much more interaction. 10 years ago, when she was still 5 years old, she followed father on a trip to Purgatory City. That time was the darkest part of her history while growing up. And the person that could touch this dark layer, naturally, was the badness in front of her eyes that was smiling amiably, but was vicious and merciless. Luo Die was admittedly arrogantly and despotic. But every time she recalled Ziyan's innumerable cruel methods, just thinking about it brought about some of her lingering fear. Who is she? Luo Haochen saw his always brash younger sister wilting after recognizing the opponent, and couldn't help but frown. Luo Die leaned close to Luo Haochen and muttered something. Luo Haochen's good-looking sword-like eyebrows knitted tightly. It might be assumed that Ziyan's origin made his heart give birth to some restraining fear. Luo Haochen thought about it, and decided on diplomacy over violence. As a result, he cupped his hand and said, Miss Ziyan, this red acacia tree was first discovered by our Luoyu Palace Hall. This is the so-called first-come first-served. I hope Miss Ziyan would move back a step. Luo Haochen's tone, although polite, but the meaning in his words was not at all polite. Purgatory City's strength was indeed tyrannical, but they still had to give a reasonable explanation, right? The corner of Ziyan's mouth hooked into a cold sneer. You ask me to move back a step and I'll move back. Then wouldn't I have lost some face? If I don't have face, then wouldn't that mean Purgatory City also doesn't have any face? Lu Haochun's eyes narrowed coldly. He was usually arrogant, now seeing him use a rarely seen nice tone and manner to talk to someone, but the opponent was still this arrogant. What does Miss Ziyan want to do? Luo Haochun restrained his anger, arrogantly sweeping her a glance. One of the sentences you said is not wrong, it's the so-called first come first served. This red acacia tree, this miss had already seen 2 years ago, and calculated that at this time, the fruit would ripen, only then did I come to pick it. You guys arrived too late. Ziyan's expression and tone carried an arrogance that came from deep within her body. You simply to bully intolerably. You are saying nonsense. This red acacia tree, clearly, I had discovered it first. How could it be first discovered by you? Luo Jie's face was full of resentment, and said in a towering rage. I discovered it earlier than you. You look here, this tree has already been marked with the sign for Purgatory City since long ago. Ziyan smiled happily as she pointed to the blood-red skull imprint on the tree. Where is your Luoyu Palace Hall sign? Swallowed by the tree? Luo Haochun's expression condensed slightly. He turned his head to look towards Luo Jie. Luo Jie's expression flushed red. Momentarily, she hesitated, unable to say anything. Before, when she discovered this red acacia tree, she wanted to immediately carve her family's sign on it, but could not deal with it. This tree was as nimble as a spirit. She haven't even neared it, before she was sent flying by a ruthless vine. How could she carve it under such circumstances? Also because of this, she had discovered that this red acacia tree had a high probability of being a variant. So she hurried to ask second brother to come and help her. Consequently, Luo Jie, with embarrassment, shook her head at Luo Haochun. Luo Haochun's brows wrinkled even more tightly. However, Luo Haochun was also not a fool. If Purgatory City had already discovered this red acacia tree at an earlier time, they would have already sent people here earlier to guard it. How could they have allowed Luo Jie to get near it? As a result, Luo Haochun was certain that Ziyan was definitely lying. However, even though he knew she was clearly lying, Luo Haochun didn't have any means to deal with her. Chapter 829, Variant Red Acacia Tree 5. He took a few steps forward, fixed his ice-cold gaze at the sign, and suddenly, his lips curled into a stern sneer. Purgatory City is something else. It's been 2 years since they made the sign, and now it still looks as good as new. Being called out, Ziyan's face didn't redden, nor did she gasp, saying, Of course this point is something Luoyu Palace Hall should learn from. Luo Haochun was stopped with a stifled breath held in his throat. He heavily humphed coldly. Don't beat around the bush, Miss Ziyan. How to resolve this matter? You give an account, otherwise we can only use strength to decide. Luo Haochun, since the beginning, had not bothered to spare a glance at Su Luo. In the beginning, he swept a glance at Su Luo, and discovered that she was merely an insignificant 5th rank, so he took her for Ziyan's attendant. Therefore, he did not directly look at her at all. Ziyan's gaze and Su Luo's eyes met and conferred. Although they had just met, but they had a complete understanding of each other. With only a brief glance, they could understand what the other was thinking. What do you want to do? In a negotiation, the first to offer a price would be in an inferior position. Therefore, Ziyan simply would not be the first to offer a price. There are 5 red acacia seeds on this tree. We the Luoyu Palace Hall. Get 3, you get 2. Luo Haochun spoke coldly. Ziyan coldly laughed out loud. She didn't know about anything else, but Su Luo obviously needed 3 seeds. If she dared to agree, Su Luo would tear her up. No way. We get 3, you get 2. Ziyan's expression was cold and stern. This also won't do, we must get 3. Luo Haochun was also not someone easy to deal with. Then that's to say, we won't come to an agreement. Miss Ziyan, take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Ziyan gave a sneer. You want us Purgatory City to take a step back? Luo Haochun, you have huge guts. Miss Ziyan, you cannot represent the entire Purgatory City. Luo Haochun frowned. If it was not for fear of Purgatory City, Why should he waste so much words with her? Red acacia seeds are on the tree. Whoever grabs it first, it would belong to them. Why speak so much nonsense? Ziyan said coldly. Great. These are your own words. Luo Haochen's lips curled into a cold smile. Ziyan's words just happened to match his intentions. Seeing how quickly he agreed, a sudden feeling of unease appeared in Ziyan's heart. She took a furtive glance at Su Luo. Su Luo shrugged her shoulders. Words after words. How could there be time to carefully ponder? Since it had already reached this stage, then let's see how this turned out. She did not believe that the red acacia seed, that even the little divine dragon could not pick, could actually be picked by the people from Luoyu Palace Hall. Elder brother, let me go pick them. Luo Jie perked up her pure baby doll-like face. A very unwavering, determined to win expression flashed through her eyes. Okay, go. Luo Haochen nodded his head. Ziyan and Su Luo looked at each other, smiles visible in the depths of their eyes. Both the little divine dragon and Ziyan could not pick the seeds. How could this little girl Luo Jie pick it? Wasn't this a joke? However, in the next instant, Su Luo and Ziyan's expressions changed slightly, because Luo Jie pulled out a pair of white gloves that gave off silver lights from her sleeve, and slowly put them on. As she was putting them on, she sent a provocative glance at Ziyan that was full of disdain. Golden silkworm silver-threaded gloves? Ziyan cried out in surprise. Considered you are also knowledgeable. Luo Jie humphed coldly, and slowly walked towards the red acacia tree. At that time, remorse was over Ziyan's face as she looked at Su Luo. It's over, it's over, it's over. If I lose the red acacia seeds this time, will you beat me up? Ziyan was sullen, ashamed, and with a pitiful face, she looked at Su Luo. Suddenly, a bad premonition appeared in Su Luo's heart. Chapter 830. Variant Red Acacia Tree 6. The golden silkworm's silver-threaded gloves, what kind of thing is it? Su Luo asked in a low voice. These children of the 10 powerful families, each and every one of them had wide knowledge and experience. Ziyan had a bitter smile as she shook her head. Golden silkworm's silver-threaded gloves are made from the silver silk spit out by the golden silkworm. You might not have heard of the golden silkworm, but you have definitely seen its food. What is it? Ziyan forced out another bitter smile. Golden silkworms are extremely rare. Raising them cost a lot of effort, because what they eat are crystal stones. Moreover, they only eat green-colored or higher-grade crystal stones. Su Luo was speechless. Ziyan sighed and said, as a result, there are very few golden silkworms. To get enough silk to make a pair of gloves, you need to have at least 100 golden silkworms to spit out 10 years' worth of silk threads. Su Luo's lip pursed. Those were really extravagant. Ziyan finally reached a conclusion. Golden silkworm's silver thread gloves are extremely sturdy, its defensive abilities are very strong. Even an 8th rank expert can hardly break its defense, so they are perfect when used to pick red acacia seeds. Su Luo's gaze was closely fixed on those gloves. Actually, that pair of golden silkworm's silver thread gloves is the most suitable weapon for you. Ziyan said regrettably. Oh, Su Luo expressed her doubt. Golden silkworm's silver thread gloves, when combined with your great dimensional imprint, that would be the most exquisite match. However, it's a pity, the Luoyu Palace Hall are usually stingy. No matter what, you won't be able to get those gloves. Su Luo looked at the golden silkworm's silver thread gloves, a touch of regret also flashing through her eyes. While the two were talking, Luo Jie had already walked to the front of the red acacia tree. Her lips curled into a proud and self-satisfied smile. Before, she was almost killed by this overbearing tree. And now, wasn't she still back to pick its seeds? Luo Jie extended both of her hands just at this very moment. Something unexpected happened. Those branches of the red acacia tree that were swaying in the wind, in a split second, tensed up and ruthlessly whipped towards Luo Jie. Luo Jie was already prepared. She lowered her body and dodged it. But this time, even the gods were not on her side. Although she had calculated correctly the red acacia tree's response, there was also the little divine dragon standing on the tree, having his fingers being gnawed on. Normally, The little divine dragon was very obedient, but he was very protective of his food. Whoever dared to touch his treasure, he would give his life to protect it. However, the little divine dragon was originally the size of a small ball. Considering the red acacia tree's luxuriant leaves and branches, Luo Jie really didn't notice him at all. In the blink of an eye, the little divine dragon had lifted his sturdy calf. He threw a very heavy kick towards the arrogant Luo Jie's breasts. This kick to launch someone far away was something the little divine dragon had just practiced on the lousy spirit stone. When protecting his food, his strength was definitely solid. How could the delicate Luo Jie withstand it? One could only see her body make a parabola arc and shoot back, flying far away. Because before, when the lousy stone was kicked away, it had still chattered away. So this time, the little divine dragon had learned from it. He used all his strength for this kick and sent Luo Jie far, far away. Luo Jie's body flew over them in midair, shooting all the way to the middle of a distant dark lake. No, Luo Jie's face was full of horror, because she saw a frightening spiked alligator looking up with its bloody maw open wide like a sacrificial bowl. It was not clear whether it was the little divine dragon's good luck that defied nature or Luo Jie's conduct that provoked the great indignation of gods. Anyhow, Luo Jie was in a tragic situation. Her body that was kicked flying was bent in the shape of a bow, and directly sat on the sharp spikes, straight in the bloody maw of the alligator. Those sharp protruding teeth of the spiked alligator, with a whoosh sound, directly sank into the fair skin of both of Luo Jie's butt cheeks. Chapter 831, Variant Red Acacia Tree 7. Luo Jie was frightened, scared, afraid and also in pain. She loudly screeched, her voice loud enough to be heard all over the dark forest. Su Luo and the others were close to the lake and there were no obstacles around it. So all of them saw Luo Jie's miserable experience. Su Luo and Ziyan's eyes met. Both had an extremely complicated expression in their eyes. Su Luo didn't know what to say. What an intrepid little dragon. Ziyan nodded her head in silence. Only he is still small. Su Luo didn't know how to explain this. So small and already so valiant. Ziyan sighed deeply. Su Luo noticed that the more she said, the more she would make the matters worse. So she helplessly shrugged her shoulders. Compared to the two of them of Su Luo's party, the color of Luo Haochen's face could be described as a black pot. So black that even water could drip out. He was just about to go save Luo Jie personally. However, at this moment, another unforeseen event took place. Not sure what the little divine dragon had done, but the variant red acacia tree unexpectedly started swinging back and forth, as if doing the Yanga one dance. Just when Su Luo couldn't continue watching, and wanted to go take back the little divine dragon, suddenly, a green light flashed by. That variant red acacia tree suddenly pulled itself up by the roots on its 4 thick root stems, just like 4 legs. With a whoosh sound, it directly ran forward. Su Luo simply looked on, dumbfounded. What was this fucking world? Even trees can grow 4 legs like an animal to run and jump about? Su Luo felt that her view of this world had been broken, and was rewritten. What are you doing, still staring foolishly? Quickly chase it. Ziyan reacted quicker. She grabbed Su Luo and flew to chase after the tree. Su Luo finally returned to her senses, and quickly accelerated to catch up. Luo Haochen was also stunned by the scene in front of his eyes. Originally, he had wanted to personally help Luo Jie, but seeing Ziyan and Su Luo chase after the tree, he immediately changed his mind. Split off, 2 people to save the miss. Luo Haochen loudly instructed. Really unlucky. At this critical moment, Luo Jie, this girl, not only couldn't help, but also dragged him behind. He saw it clearly, when Luo Jie was kicked flying, that pair of golden silkworm silver-threaded gloves were not on her hands. Damned red acacia tree. Luo Haochen cursed in his mind. Wait till he catches it, he'd burn it as firewood. Up until now, Luo Haochen still didn't know. It was not the tree that kicked Luo Jie flying, rather, it was that constantly cute little dragon. The red acacia tree ran really fast. If Su Luo hadn't already learned the first form of the spirit dance steps, she would have been thrown off long ago. But now, she was still steadily running in the lead. Luo Haochen saw Su Luo's speed, and was inevitably shocked. Before, he had all along thought that Su Luo was Ziyan's attendant, so he never thought her worthy of being looked at directly. Now he realized that matters weren't like that at all. This girl, who on the surface seemed to be no higher than 5th rank, but her speed was not slower than the 7th-ranked Ziyan. She actually could steadily run up ahead in the lead. How could Luo Haochen let a girl run in front of him? He clenched his teeth and concentrated all of his spirit powers to his feet. His long legs were as fast as lightning. However, what surprised him was that no matter how fast he was, Su Luo was constantly one step ahead of him. This discovery simply shocked him. Ziyan, who was running side by side with him, noticed this and sneered. "Looks like you're just SSO too." "Shut up." Luo Haochen shouted back angrily. "If you have the ability, then run ahead, why be so fierce?" Ziyan laughed coldly, then extended her hand towards Su Luo. "Girl, carry your older sister for a while." Su Luo smiled knowingly, caught Ziyan by her arm, and pulled her up to run side by side with her. Luo Haochen, who was running behind them, nearly started to spit out blood. 1. Yanga dance. A traditional dance in northern China where you sway your hips and wave a handkerchief. The footwork is simple 4 crossover steps. Yes, this translator Jun knows the steps. I am after all from northern China? Chapter 832, Variant Red Acacia Tree 8. Su Luo was running when suddenly, her eyebrows wrinkled. Allowing Luo Haochen to follow like this was a bit disadvantageous to her. He still didn't know the existence of the little divine dragon right now. But once he noticed, at that time, his rage at the red acacia tree would shift onto her body. In order to avoid this absurd disaster, Su Luo started thinking of ways. In a blink of an eye, she came up with a plan. Dark forest didn't have any pathways, and the red acacia tree had already vanished from sight. If it weren't for the senses from Su Luo and the little divine dragon's contract, she would have lost the tree a long time ago. Su Luo secretly strengthened the arm she used to pull Ziyan along with. When Ziyan looked at her, she glanced to the right. The two people had similar temperament, so they easily understood each other. As a result, Ziyan immediately understood what Su Luo had in mind. 1, 2, 3. On 3, the two of them both darted forward to the right. Losing the two figures before him, Luo Haochen's eyes brightened immediately, however unconsciously, he followed after those two people's back. But very quickly it dawned on him. Where are you guys going? Luo Haochen knit his eyebrows. There were obviously no paths over there. Why would they keep running over there? Su Luo didn't look back, but Ziyan did, and she beckoned with her hand towards Luo Haochen. Going over here is a shortcut. Luo Haochen scrunched his eyebrows even more. Did they think he was blind? The red acacia tree obviously went left, but they ran to the right side. This simply was an act that defeated their purpose. Could it be that they deliberately did it to muddle the waters? Second young master. All the experts following Luo Haochen stopped. They looked at him, waiting for his decision. Luo Haochen's eyes narrowed slightly, his hand gesturing forward. Go! From beginning to end, he felt that Su Luo and Ziyan were deliberately muddling the waters. Therefore, the only thing he believed in was his own eyes. Then what were the real facts? Su Luo and the little divine dragon could sense each other, and little divine dragon was now hanging onto the red acacia tree. From this, it proved that the path Su Luo took was the correct one. It's a pity just like this, Luo Haochen got separated. Now speaking of the little divine dragon. Along the way, the mad red acacia tree had wanted to throw the little divine dragon away. But the little divine dragon was like a sticky caramelized sweet, his 4 little claws hanging onto the branches, holding on tightly. There was no way it could shake off the little divine dragon. The red acacia tree was enraged half to death, and tried to use its willow-like twigs to bind up the little divine dragon, because it was the most proud of its twigs attack. However, before it could finish tying up the little divine dragon, on one end, he had bitten off the branch at the other end. Ultimately, the red acacia tree had no better option. The tree decisively gave up since the jar had already broken before being dropped. Without looking back, it ran towards the place it thought was the safest. The little divine dragon noticed that the tree was resigned to its fate and not harassing him anymore. He stuck his little red tongue out, a little embarrassed. Afterwards, he secretly pulled something out from his chest pocket. Golden silkworm's silver-threaded gloves. Before Luo had tried to take the red acacia seeds from the red acacia tree by wearing these gloves. A pity, the tragic girl got kicked away by the little divine dragon before she could pick it. However, when the little divine dragon was kicking her away, he was still very rational. He had secretly peeled these golden silkworm's silver-threaded gloves off of her hands. The little divine dragon slid his claw into the glove out of curiosity. But these gloves were made for human hands. With regards to him, it was like a loose skirt around his claw. The little divine dragon twisted this way and that way, but couldn't find any way to put them on. The red acacia tree was running and running. Didn't know for how long it ran. Finally, a pitch-black cave appeared up ahead. The red acacia tree didn't even have to think and directly ran inside. As soon as it entered, the little divine dragon couldn't help but shiver. The red acacia tree continued to run forward, finally stopping at a place where it could hide in the cave. However, it didn't know that the little divine dragon had already stretched out his evil claws. Chapter 833, Variant Red Acacia Tree 9. There were no less than several tens of paths in the cave, all leading to different places. From the red acacia tree's perspective, those humankind won't find it here, for sure. However, what the red acacia tree didn't know was that the foolish little dragon hanging on it was the best guiding lamp. Having shaken off Luo Haochen, Su Luo and Ziyin exchanged a glance and laughed. Luo Haochen, this fool. Ha ha ha, I'm laughing to death. Yeah, can't recognize good intentions. Su Luo laughed and followed with this sentence. Ziyin had called out to him to come, but he assumed that they were deliberately misleading him. Really an idiot. This is the right way, right? Ziyin added this sentence to ask. Rest assured, as long as the distance is not too far, the little divine dragon and I can sense each other. Su Luo guaranteed. Very quickly, Su Luo brought Ziyin to arrive at the front of the cave. Heavens, your family's little dragon couldn't have run inside here, right? Ziyin, seeing the pitch-black cave, had a face full of surprise. Why? Su Luo suddenly got a bad premonition. This place, see that vertical stone tablet? This is one of the 6 forbidden areas for people in the dark forest. Ziyin swallowed thickly. What? Su Luo's heart was suddenly alarmed. That red acacia tree kept running and ran all the way into a forbidden area? What now? Ziyin spread out her hands. Su Luo frowned. She had a rare connection with the little divine dragon that's hard to find, but they couldn't communicate directly. If she didn't go in, she had no way of knowing whether the little divine dragon was in danger or not. You stay here, I'll go in. Su Luo firmly instructed. Since we're friends, naturally we'll advance and retreat together. I'll go in with you, it's good to have somebody covering your back. Ziyin said with a calm expression. Noticing the corner of Su Luo's eyes raised slightly, Ziyin hurriedly explained. I'm not returning any favors, you should be clear about that. Su Luo realized that Ziyin, this girl, especially feared owing people a favor. She nodded her head. Okay, let's go. Although they were chatting and laughing, they both had already become guarded and entered in a state of alertness. One person in the front and one in the back. They cautiously entered deeper into the cave, step by step. Because of the connection between Su Luo and the little divine dragon, so every time she chose, it was precisely the correct path to take in this labyrinth-like cave. After walking about 2 hours, a dim light appeared up ahead. Awoo-awoo, the little divine dragon felt Su Luo's presence and greeted her from the top of the tree where he sat. Su Luo walked closer. When she noticed the red acacia tree, she couldn't help but be a little surprised. The red acacia tree now seemed to have wilted completely. The former lush leaves now were sparse and slack. The few that were left were utterly dilapidated. Formerly, it had a daring and energetic spirit, but now, it hung its head, looking crestfallen and dejected. The corner of Su Luo's mouth pursed slightly, and asked the little divine dragon, "What did you do to it? How could it look so brutally mistreated?" Awoo-awoo. It bullied me. The little divine dragon ran into Su Luo's embrace, complaining nonstop. Su Luo was speechless. In the end, who bullied who? Where are the red acacia seeds? Ziyan circled that withering acacia tree, sizing it up from top to bottom, and discovered that the most important red acacia seeds were gone. There was a pair of gloves hanging on top of the little divine dragon's head. Because the glove string was too long, he had seriously wrapped it around his neck a few times, looking presentable. And those gloves, the little divine dragon had used them as bags. The little divine dragon earnestly opened these glove bags, took out one seed and handed it to Su Luo. Chapter 834. Variant Red Acacia Tree 10. Then he took out another one. Yet another one. Afterwards, he closed the sack at once, indicating that the matter was over. Su Luo looked at him faintly. What about the rest? Who would have thought? The little divine dragon's 2 claws would cover the other glove bag on the side. His face was guarded as he looked at Su Luo, looking at Su Luo until she directly patted his head. Miser. Ziyan's pair of eyes was bright like the stars. She looked at the little divine dragon with matchless admiration. What an adorable little dragon. While Ziyan watched admiringly, she also reached out her hand to scratch the softest spot under the little divine dragon's chin. This little thing had acted as a dog for too long, and had gained a few habits of a dog. He liked it when other people scratched under his chin. Where did you get it from? Ziyan curiously asked. At that time he voluntarily stuck to me. No matter how I shooed him away, he wouldn't go. In all honesty, what Su Luo said were all truthful. However, Ziyan did not believe it at all. She unhappily rolled her eyes at Su Luo. You just go ahead and keep fabricating it. An arrogant, noble and virtuous member of the dragon race would lose money instead of being paid? And no matter what, you still couldn't shoo it away? Su Luo pointed at the little divine dragon. Would an arrogant, noble and virtuous member of the dragon race let you play with it like you're playing with a puppy? Su Luo indicated at Ziyan's action. Sorry. Ziyan only then managed to return to her senses. Her heart couldn't help but jump in fright. Oh heavens! Just now, she actually did such an offensive thing to the revered little divine dragon. The little divine dragon scratched his head and stared at Ziyan in puzzlement. Su Luo let out a pfftt, laughing sound. Just at this time, out of the corner of her eye, Su Luo suddenly glimpsed the red acacia tree stealthily trying to slip away. Originally, since she had already obtained the red acacia seeds, so this acacia tree, to her, was already of no use. But this was a variant acacia tree, moreover, it was nimble and sharp-witted. Its speed was even faster than hers. This caused her to develop other kinds of thoughts. Chase! Seeing that it wanted to run, Su Luo immediately dodged and rushed forward. The little divine dragon took a single leap, shooting forward. Very quickly, it flew onto the red acacia tree. One could only see him bite down, and the red acacia tree very helplessly stayed in place. The little divine dragon pulled a fine, long branch and carried it on his shoulder, just like an old farmer hefting a plow. He pulled the red acacia tree, unhurriedly walking back. This little thing. The corner of Su Luo's mouth pursed slightly. Normally he was adorable and a spoiled ornament of a spirit pet. During times of battle, he was an extraordinarily difficult to deal with fighting spirit pet. Simply made other people extremely envious. Ziyan was also not without some envy. Truly an omnipotent spirit pet. I've decided, I also want to find a dragon. Su Luo picked up the little divine dragon to carry in her arms, then unhurriedly strolled over to the front of the red acacia tree. She narrowed her eyes dangerously, the corner of her mouth unhurriedly hooking up. Right now, I'll give you the opportunity to pick from 2 choices. 1. Be burned and then turn into ash. Su Luo offered up a crimson fireball, the light of the flame illuminating the inner room like it was daytime. The originally aloof red acacia tree saw the color of that fireball, and couldn't help but to curl up, shivering. The second choice is to be my plant spirit pet. Su Luo's eyes were electric, staring straight at the red acacia tree. Pick one out of the 2. If you choose the first one, then sway one willow branch. Choose the second one, then sway 2 branches. Su Luo stared at it icily. It was rare to encounter a variant plant. If she just released it like that, then it would truly be a pity. She remembered that Li Yaoyao also had a plant spirit pet. At that time, she had been bundled up by it and hung in the air. She was also nearly whipped and disfigured by it. Su Luo had always remembered this hatred, and wanted to try to give her a taste of her own medicine. The red acacia tree hesitated for quite a while and ultimately swayed 2 willow branches. Su Luo gently stroked the willow branches and said, beaming with all smiles, "Don't feel disheartened. If you want to know, this is the most correct decision you've ever made in your life." Chapter 835, Diamond Ape King. 1. After hearing what Su Luo said, the red acacia tree became even more dejected. To think that it, so majestic with the essence of a millennium-old tree, would actually be taken in as a plant spirit pet by a lowly 5th rank. This was simply too humiliating. The red acacia tree drooped its head, its willow branches nearly hanging down to the ground. Su Luo patted its head in annoyance and casually placed it into her space. Who knew that when the originally disappointed acacia tree arrived in her space, immediately, its entire body burst out with green light. In a flash, it had been restored, with many branches and luxurious leaves. Its originally miserable appearance from being maltreated by the little divine dragon immediately changed to look completely new. Yeah. The red acacia tree didn't know how to speak, but that cheerful, lively twisting movement of the willow branches was, without exception, showing its excited mood. Seeing the endlessly happy red acacia tree inside her space, the corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into a slight smile. There was no one who could resist the lure of that rich spirit force inside her space. Even though the red acacia tree belonged to the plant system, its requirements for air and soil were even more extreme. To it, the environment inside her space was like paradise. However, just when it was jubilant and itching to immediately take root, at the same time, the heartless Su Luo tossed it out from her space. Discovering that it had returned back to its original environment, the red acacia tree was immediately very unhappy. It twisted its willow branches in protest to Su Luo. Yeah. Its countless number of willow branches revolved around Su Luo, flying fast in a dance around her, incessantly trying to curry favor with her. But Su Luo only crossed her arms and proudly turned her head away. Wasn't it looking down upon her, this master? Didn't it only agree reluctantly? Humph. Precisely so, she refused to acknowledge it. Yeah. Seeing Su Luo refuse to acknowledge it, being given the cold shoulder, this plant spirit pet's heart was truly worried. Under this anxiety, it raised a willow branch and directly whipped towards Su Luo's finger. Before Su Luo had time to even open her eyes, she saw a drop of scarlet blood float out from her finger and fall onto the red acacia tree's roots. Just at this time, a sparkling and translucent green radiance appeared between Su Luo and the red acacia tree. The green light sparkled with a rich spirit force. Very quickly, a lot of information regarding the acacia tree suddenly filled Su Luo's mind. Yeah. Want to go back. The red acacia tree rolled about, acting cutely and shamelessly toward Su Luo. Su Luo helplessly supported her forehead with her hand. She had a premonition that this plant spirit pet that she took in was definitely the same as those 2 from before, an exotic marvel. Fine, but after you enter, you are not allowed to stir up trouble. Su Luo stiffened her face to instruct it. If she wasn't a bit more strict, she was worried that after this thing went in, it would stir up everything and make her space into a complete mess. Originally, Little Sky and the foolish little dragon were already quarreling every day. Then letting this one in, heaven only knows what would happen. The red acacia tree hurriedly nodded, guaranteeing that it would certainly be well behaved. Only then did Su Luo wave her hand and return it back into her space. Once it entered her space, the red acacia tree was like a fish in water, endlessly excited. From beginning to end, Ziyan did not speak. She had her mouth open wide all along, foolishly watching this scene before her. Only until after Su Luo returned the red acacia tree back into her space again, did she wake up with a start. This also works. Ziyan was so astonished, she nearly bit her own tongue. Why won't it work? Is it very strange? Su Luo looked at her blankly. Could it be that everyone didn't subdue a plant spirit pet in this manner? Is it very strange? Ziyan bit down on her back molar and stared at Su Luo. She said, stressing each word. Of course it's very strange. How can it not be strange? How is it strange? Su Luo forced a smile as she rubbed her nose. Ziyan asked. Are you an apothecary? Su Luo nodded her head blankly. Ziyan's expression shone as she asked. Then you're definitely a wood and fire dual system? Su Luo nodded her head once more. Chapter 836, Diamond Ape King 2, Ziyan could not help but glare. You are actually a fire and wood dual system. Then how can you not know that the wood system's plant must be raised from when it is young? Raised from when it is just a seed. Ziyan's whole body trembled with agitation. But you were able to force a millennium-old red acacia tree into submission. Also, it was with the counterpart crying, shouting, kneeling and begging you to accept it. This fucking forces people to be way too jealous. Really makes a person fall apart. Don't stop me, I need to hit my head against a wall. Su Luo. She forced a smile and touched her nose. As to this, maybe because my moral character is rather good? Good your damn little sister, apart from you. Who else has such bad moral character and a two-faced heart? Ziyan bluntly retorted. Su Luo spread out her hands. Lucky people can't be blocked, you'll just have to be envious, jealous and hate it. I can understand. Ziyan's forehead tightened. She was just about to say a couple of sarcastic sentences to Su Luo, but Su Luo raised her hand to stop her. What, won't even let me vent some words from jealousy? Ziyan rolled her eyes. Su Luo made a gesture to be quiet. Did you hear something? Ziyan, affected by Su Luo's sudden seriousness, immediately returned to her senses. This was one of the 6 forbidden areas in the dark forest. Ziyan held her breath with rapt attention. And sure enough, she heard a strange repetitive sound. Znornorzizizi. Su Luo looked all around. Sure enough, in the neighboring cave, a long tail was exposed. Su Luo motioned Ziyan to stay quiet with a hand gesture. Afterwards, they both tiptoed silently closer, their head following the corner to turn out to explore. With this one look, it nearly made both of them feel dizzy. What was this thing? This was a magical beast. A magical beast that was golden colored from head to toe, emitting a strong fiendish aura. Its shape somewhat resembled a monkey, but its entire body was longer than 10 meters. At the top, hung 2 heads. At this moment, it laid on its back, facing up with a rising and falling belly. Obviously, it was asleep. Diamond Ape King. Ziyan cried out in surprise, then quickly covered her own mouth, only leaving behind a pair of visibly shocked eyes. Oh heavens! How could it be the Diamond Ape King? How could her luck be this bad? Momentarily, Ziyan was on the verge of tears. Diamond Ape King? Su Luo lowered her voice and asked in a whisper. You have never heard of the Diamond Ape King? Did you come to the dark forest without doing your homework? Ziyan speechlessly stared at Su Luo. I haven't been cultivating for that long, besides, most of my time was placed on refining medicine. How can I know this stuff? Since you know, quickly tell me. Su Luo urged Ziyan. Ziyan waved her hands. Okay, I'll tell you. Diamond apes are a type of variant ape. Its body can grow over 10 meters. Also, the one with 2 heads is the king of diamond apes. Is it strong? Su Luo asked with a frown. Nonsense, the diamond ape is at least an 8th rank, but this is their king, what do you think? While speaking, Ziyan was also retreating. Hey, I'm telling you not to get close, let's hurry and withdraw while it's still sleeping. If it wakes up, we're both done for. Su Luo could hear from Ziyan's words and tone that the Diamond Ape King was extremely powerful, not something they could deal with right now. Su Luo's heart was slightly alarmed. That's also right, such a strong Diamond Ape King was not something they could afford to offend. With this in mind, she carried the little divine dragon and retreated out. However, sometimes, Su Luo's luck was sincerely bad. Just when the 2 of them had tiptoed back about 10 steps, suddenly, The crisp sounds of footsteps could be heard coming from outside of the entrance. Chapter 837, Diamond Ape King 3, Su Luo and Ziyan exchanged a glance, shock flashing through their eyes. Not good. At this time, there were other people that would come, and it seemed there was a large number of people. The Diamond Ape King would definitely be woken up by the noise. Su Luo and Ziyan exchanged a mutual glance, both understanding each other's thoughts. Run without delay. As long as they outran these dozen or so people, they'd be safe. However, before they could launch out, Luo Haochen and Luo Die had led a group of people and charged in majestically. As soon as Luo Die saw Su Luo and Ziyan's sneaky appearance, immediately, her anger rose up and she started to spew insults. It was Su Luo. Luo Die recognized her immediately from before. You guys still want to run? I order you to stop. Hand over the red acacia tree. Luo Die, in the midst of a violent rage, her voice was as loud as a thunderstorm. Now both Su Luo and Ziyan's eyebrows knotted tightly. Shut up. Don't shout. Su Luo said in low voice as she glared at Luo Die angrily. Actually, just when Luo Die was shouting, Ziyan flew towards Luo Die and attempted to seal her mouth. But Luo Haochen was next to Luo Die, so he directly stopped Ziyan's attempt. Accordingly, Su Luo, who had a mutual understanding with Ziyan, immediately went towards Luo Die. But who could have known that two experts would burst out from Luo Die's side, immediately stopping Su Luo. Therefore, Luo Die safely finished her sentence of insults. Luo Die thought Su Luo and Ziyan wanted to kill her. She raised her voice even higher. You two will soon. If you don't want to die, then shut up. Su Luo glared at her and said in a stern voice. Su Luo's voice was not loud, but it had an astonishingly imposing manner, full of deterrent strength, immediately scaring Luo Die to a stop. Second older brother, she yelled at me, she actually shouted at me. Quickly help me take revenge. Luo Die immediately complained to Luo Haochen. This idiotic Luo Die now becoming aggressive. The more Su Luo told her to shut up, the louder her voice got. Idiot. The Diamond Ape King is inside sleeping. If you wake him up, you just wait and become his lunch. Su Luo looked at her as if looking at an idiot, very fiercely glaring at Luo Die. Diamond Ape King? Luo Haochen's eyes narrowed dangerously, staring fixedly at Su Luo. Are you telling the truth? Absolutely the truth, more real than the purest gold. Su Luo said in a low voice that was full of an imposing manner. Anyway, there's only two of us, but a bunch of you guys. If it wanted to eat, it would eat you guys first. You're bluffing. Before Luo Haochen could react, Luo Die had swept Su Luo a disdainful glance. Where is the Diamond Ape King? Where? Ask it to come out. I guarantee I will kill it. Su Luo pointed to a place inside. Luo Die just laughed coldly at Su Luo. Okay, I'll go inside and have a look. If there is no Diamond Ape King, you will hand over the variant acacia tree to me. For Su Luo, the most important thing was to run out from this cave. Get as far away from this ticking time bomb of a Diamond Ape King. Since Luo Die expressed that she would approach the Diamond Ape King, just so happened to attract its hostility, Su Luo's heart was happy to do so. She and Ziyan exchanged glances with a hint of a sly smile flashing through their eyes. Just when the Luo family's people went into the inner room, Su Luo and Ziyan turned around and were about to run away. Because they knew very well, when these dozen or so people from Luo family were added up, they still were not enough for the Diamond Ape King to step on. So it's more important to run away. However, though Su Luo and Ziyan wanted to run, but the 10 or so experts behind Luo Die blocked their path. You two misses should wait. Without the young masters and misses' orders, you people are not allowed to leave. Chapter 838, Diamond Ape King 4. That tall and strong person with an ice-cold gaze stared fixedly at Su Luo and Ziyan. Su Luo had just wanted to make a move, but found that the Luo family's group of people had turned their heads back. Su Luo waved the hand she had lifted at them, with a face full of smiles, expressing her greetings to them. Ziyan. Luo Jie and Luo Haochen, the two siblings, were just going towards the inside of the cave. They were both curious about Su Luo's words. Just at this moment, Luo Haochen was listening with rapt attention and discovered that there were no sounds at all. Luo Jie coldly laughed. Diamond Ape King has such a huge body, if it was sleeping, it definitely would snore. Even the books also described it like this, but now we can't hear any sounds. So this is sufficient to prove that Su Luo is lying. She is trying to trick us. Brother, let's go and quickly take the red acacia tree back. Luo Haochen also didn't hear the Diamond Ape King's snores either. However, he was a more careful person. At this time, he had a bad unsettled feeling in his heart. Brother Luo Jie wanted to go back. Luo Haochen said, "Since we're here, let's walk this path till the end. Otherwise, how will you speak with Su Luo?" "That's right, then let's walk this path till the end. In any case, there's only 10 steps left anyway." Luo Jie's face was full of smiles. However, at this moment, Su Luo was also listening with rapt attention. Gone? The sound of the Diamond Ape King's snores was gone? What does this mean? It means it was already awake. Su Luo's heart immediately skipped a beat. Momentarily, Su Luo only felt her hair stand on ends and felt her soul floating away. However, Luo Jie, that simpleton, still kept ranting on and complaining. Those foolish people under Luo Haochen were still threatening towards Su Luo and Ziyan. Just at this time, a powerful threat appeared at the cave's entrance. What is that?" Luo Jie screeched from behind Luo Haochen. "This is Diamond Ape King?" Luo Haochen's voice had a threat of trembling. Heavens, oh heavens! Appearing before them was unexpectedly a real Diamond Ape King. Su Luo wasn't trying to trick them. The Diamond Ape King's huge body stood at the entrance of the cave, its whole body covered in scales. The scales sparkled like diamond, radiating a formidable and icy aura. That pair of silver eyes was cold and detached, as it ruthlessly looked at this group of foolish humankind who dared to disturb its sleep. Everything was absolute deathly stillness. Both of Luo Jie's legs trembled, barely able to stand. Her entire person went limp in her brother's arms. Luo Haochen wasn't any better off, he only felt his brain going blank. Normally, if it was only one Diamond Ape, then he could deal with it. However, this was the Diamond Ape King, the King of Kings. That enormous pressure. The few of them present had absolutely no way of withstanding it. Besides being eaten, they were given no other option. Having realized this point, Luo Haochen's face paled. His forehead was covered with perspiration. Go. Luo Haochen wasn't stupid. He grabbed Luo Jie, turned around, and was about to run. However, before he could run out, he saw the Diamond Ape King smash its fist down. Crash! That huge entrance was immediately blocked by an enormous pile of fallen stones the size of a mountain, blocking off their escape route. Fortunately, Luo Haochen was talented and agile, and he narrowly dodged the disaster. Otherwise, he and his sister would have been buried alive under these rocks. The Diamond Ape King's apathetic gaze was dark and fierce. He stared at them ruthlessly. Brother. What should we do? Dieri is afraid. Luo Jie grabbed onto Luo Haochen's arm tightly, so tight that even if she died, she wouldn't let go. Luo Jie was very regretful. How could she have voluntarily run in front of the Diamond Ape King to court death? Chapter 839 Diamond Ape King 5. If only time could flow backwards, how great would it be? If there was medicine to cure regret in this world, Luo Jie really wanted to buy half a kilogram. She opened her mouth like this, momentarily attracting the Diamond Ape King's attention. Before, it was Luo Jie's voice that had woken up the Diamond Ape King from its sleep. Therefore, the Diamond Ape King remembered this voice very well. Immediately, its cold and detached gaze shot towards Luo Jie. Having received the ruthless and vengeful stare from the Diamond Ape King, Luo Jie's entire body didn't feel good. She covered her head, her entire body thrusting about like a madman as she loudly shouted. Thump, thump, thump. Diamond Ape King took a stride, marching its enormous body towards Luo Jie. Its pair of thick legs wasn't fast, but every step it took made a violent hitting sound. Every step ruthlessly lashed into the deepest part of everyone's hearts. Ba-thump, ba-thump, everyone could hear their own heart beating violently. Even Su Luo and Ziyan were no exception. At this moment, Su Luo and Ziyan both stood, pressed to the wall. They held their breaths with rapt attention, their hearts pounding violently. The Diamond Ape King walked towards Luo Die step by step, actually exposing an opening to the inside of the cave. The path behind had been sealed, they only had one way, and that was to go forward. Su Luo and Ziyan exchanged a look, and uniformly, they secretly nodded their heads towards each other. And now, along with the Diamond Ape King drawing near, Luo Die was so scared that her face was drained of all color, her whole body trembling. She could feel the Diamond Ape King's murderous aura. Diamond Ape King's anger is strongest when he wakes up. Luo Die is finished. Ziyan's tone was like a faint thread. In a very low voice she said, "Once the Diamond Ape King's vicious temperament is stirred up, all the people present here would die." Su Luo. Just when the Diamond Ape King was about 3 meters distance away from Luo Die, something unexpected suddenly happened at this moment. One could only see Luo Haochen reach out his hand in a strange manner, and with one move, he pulled the family's bodyguard that was behind him and fiercely tossed him towards the Diamond Ape King. The Diamond Ape King became enraged. Its hand rose and tore the so-called expert into shreds. Immediately, his internal organs were dropped on the floor, drenching the ground with blood. And this action further aroused the Diamond Ape King's murderous instincts. Su Luo and Ziyan glanced at each other. The two people's figure were like electricity as they shot towards the only cave exit. And when Luo Haochen tossed the person towards the Diamond Ape King, he had already pulled Luo Die away earlier. Chapter 840, Diamond Ape King 6. Because no one knew what was at the cave's end. Ultimately, if the path led to a dead end, then being stuck inside this narrowed cave, everyone would die. Luo Haochen took out a white porcelain bottle from his sleeves, and split one with Luo Die. Luo Die quickly swallowed it. Afterwards, the two people's speed increased rapidly, almost faster than Su Luo and Ziyan. Luo Die tauntingly provoked Su Luo. "Want to catch up to us? Dream on." Ziyan derided with a sneer. "Isn't it merely an advanced spirit restoration pill? Do you think we don't have it?" Luo Die shook that bottle. "We have a whole bottle, how about you too?" Su Luo was suddenly speechless. This stupid girl, even now, she was still comparing this? Su Luo simply flipped one of her hands. Suddenly, 2 bottles of spirit restoration pills appeared in her palm. She tossed one bottle to Ziyan. "Catch." Ziyan smiled happily. After catching the bottle, she grabbed a handful and tossed it into her mouth. "You guys." Luo Die's face was full of rage and one breath was stifled in her chest that wouldn't go up nor down. Ziyan cast her a provoking glance. "We just need to run faster than you guys. Once you guys feed the Diamond Ape King until his stomach is full, then we will be safe." Ha ha ha. After hearing those words, Luo Die was so enraged that she gave off smoke. "Your spirit restoration pills are fakes. Normal people would never grab a handful at a time, okay? Even one pill would be divided into pieces to be eaten several times." Ziyan very generously tossed a pill to Luo Die. "Whether it's fake or not, you can examine it yourself." Luo Die, at one glance, could see that this advanced spirit restoration pill was clearly better than the one she had. Brother! This time, the hope of using Ziyan and Su Luo as sacrificial victims had fallen through. "Shut up, quickly run." Luo Haochen was itching to abandon this younger sister who seemed to invite disaster. Obviously Ziyan and Su Luo had already warned them, but this girl still spoke so loudly to the extent of waking up the Diamond Ape King, thus resulting in them being chased to be killed. Luo Die was angrily rebuked, and her eyes filled with tears. She felt that she had been extremely wronged. If this was a normal day, naturally, there would be a countless number of people around, pampering and coaxing her. But now, who had the time to bother with her? Behind them, the Diamond Ape King's mouth was as thick as a sausage, curved into an ice-cold smile. Its eyes burst out with an scathing murderous aura. Seeing the humankind ahead speeding up, rage shot out of the Diamond King Ape's eyes. Boom, from behind came bursts of sounds. A bright light suddenly flashed on in the Diamond Ape King's idiotic mind. Its finger stabbed forward. Immediately, the ceiling of the cave burst out with loud crashing sounds. Piece after piece of rocks that were as tall as a person started to fall down nonstop. The rocks continuously fell down, creating a lot of trouble for Su Luo and Ziyan, who were fleeing. Careful! Seeing a huge piece of rock was about to smash onto Ziyan's head, Su Luo instinctively pulled on Ziyan's hand. After just barely avoiding the boulder-sized rock, Ziyan, with lingering fear, patted her chest. That was close. Su Luo pulled Ziyan close to her and launched her nothingness of space that could only accommodate 2 people. Originally, Luo Jie was running at Su Luo and Ziyan's back. Because nothingness of space was colorless and transparent, other people simply could not see it. Therefore, when Luo Jie saw a huge rock dropping down vertically towards Ziyan and Su Luo's head, and it seemed as if they completely didn't sense it at this moment, Luo Jie was simply elated. Her eyes and brows were curved, so happy that she almost sang a song. Ziyan, go die, go die. I order you to go die. Luo Jie sang this madly with excitement in her heart, and even waved her fist in a cheering gesture. However, Chapter 841 Diamond Ape King 7. However, what made her eyes go blank from looking was when that huge rock was about to drop down on their head. However, when it was about 10 centimeters from Ziyan and Su Luo's head, that huge rock fucking stopped, as if something had separated it from them. Not only this, but that rock seemed to have received a severe attack. One piece was cracked into numerous pieces and smashed towards Luo Jie, who was behind them. Because Luo Jie was watching with so much excitement, she forgot to defend. As a result, her delicate as jade face got scratched by the rock fragments flying by. Ouch! A soft sound echoed, with debris flying by, sprinkling a mist of blood. And Luo Jie's delicate face suddenly had more than a huge area full of deep scars. Brother! The changes in this matter happened too quickly and were too great. Luo Jie simply didn't have the time to react. She unconsciously started to cry and look for her brother. At this point, Luo Haochen's heart was very irritated. The constantly falling rocks had already made him pale, but now his younger sister kept crying and complaining to him. Luo Haochen angrily roared at Luo Jie. Shut up! Otherwise, I will leave you behind. While speaking, a huge boulder fell down from the sky. Luo Haochen pulled at Luo Jie and they quickly sprang forward. They dangerously escaped the attack of that boulder. It wasn't the first time that Ziyan had entered the nothingness of space, but the first time, she was pressed under Su Luo's body, so she couldn't feel anything. This time, Ziyan had her eyes opened wide in wonder. Her pair of eyes was sparkling and shining. Isn't this too amazing, right? Compared to Luo family's desperate struggles, the two of them seemed to be simply taking a leisurely stroll, very leisurely. Luo Haochen was also not blind. On the contrary, his senses were very perceptive. Seeing how Ziyan and Su Luo treated those falling rocks as if they were nothing, although he couldn't understand, it still didn't hinder his heart from wanting to take advantage of them. Therefore, Luo Haochen pulled on Luo Jie and hurriedly tried to squeeze her near Ziyan's side. Maybe he felt that like this, those rocks wouldn't be able to hit them. Unfortunately, no matter what, they couldn't have known. Su Luo's nothingness of space was just that small, barely able to fit 2 people in. Not only wouldn't Luo Haochen and Luo Jie get any cheap advantages, instead, because they were at the edge of the nothingness of space, it was even easier for them to get hit by those rocks. Brother, brother save me. Brother, brother save me. Because Luo Haochen had to protect his younger sister, he squeezed her next to Ziyan's side. But who would have known that those rocks would hit Luo Jie even worse? Luo Haochen quickly pulled Luo Jie back, but discovered that her entire face and head were covered in bloody grazes. On top of her head was even a swollen bump the size of a steamed bun. For a moment, he was simply speechless. But Su Luo and Ziyan's comfort was only on the surface. In fact, their hearts were not peaceful at all. This Diamond Ape King had almost become a spirit, Its strength was formidable and terrifying. If its speed wasn't a little bit slower, by now, all of them would have been torn into pieces. The places that the Diamond Ape King passed by, the ground would shatter like spider webs. Its power was simply unstoppable. Because of the falling rocks forming obstacles, Su Luo and other people's speed were now slower than before. But the Diamond Ape King's speed became faster and faster. Therefore, the gap between them was getting closer and closer. The last member of the team, who was Luo family's bodyguard, his feet were unstable, staggering. He almost fell down. However, not waiting for him to fall down, the Diamond Ape King directly slapped a huge palm towards him. The bodyguard from Luo family, his head was immediately smacked down into his neck. His tall body suddenly shortened by a chunk. Chapter 842 Diamond Ape King 8. Then his body slowly fell to the ground. But the Diamond Ape King still had indissoluble anger. When it took a large stride to sprang forward, one huge foot stepped down in an instant. That Luo family's bodyguard was immediately squashed into a meat patty. Completely couldn't tell the original features of the body. Too bloody, too brutal, too monstrous. Su Luo turned her head around, saw the scene, and her expression immediately changed. Ziyan's face also became somewhat pale. Clearly, she nearly vomited. Quickly run. Su Luo pulled heavily at Ziyan. Ziyan, with a serious expression, nodded her head. At this moment, the Diamond Ape King was very close to the procession of people. At the end of the procession, the Luo family's bodyguards who ran the slowest, one after another, was disposed of by the Diamond Ape King. They died in various horrible fashions, tragic and a shocking sight to behold. Didn't know how much time had passed. Up ahead was still darkness without an end. And this procession actually only had 4 people remaining. The people that remained were Su Luo, Ziyan, Luo Haochen, and Luo Jie. Those Luo family's bodyguards were all smashed to death by the Diamond Ape King. They didn't even have the strength to resist. Brother, help me. Sob sob. The Diamond Ape King was already really close to Luo Jie. So close as to be almost within reach. Luo Jie could almost smell the bloody scent on the Diamond Ape King's body. At this time, Luo Haochen was already too busy attending to himself. On his usually icily arrogant and self-confident face, appeared a fine layer of sweat. However, he didn't even have the time to wipe it away. He gathered all of his strength to pull Luo Jie forward. Hearing Luo Jie's plaintive crying sounds, Su Luo didn't feel like gloating. On the contrary, she had a feeling of sympathy with a like-minded person in distress. After Luo Jie was done for, very quickly, it would be their turn. No one could escape the Diamond Ape King's pursuit. Just at this moment, a trace of light suddenly appeared up ahead. Su Luo focused her sight and silently listened, and she actually heard the echoing sounds of a waterfall. Su Luo said to Ziyan, "Endure. Up ahead is a turn for the better." Ziyan clenched her teeth and nodded her head. Probably because of Luo Jie's strong survival instinct, she quickly sprang forward, so that the Diamond Ape King couldn't grab her firmly. Very quickly, they reached the end of the dark cave. Up ahead really was a waterfall on top of a cliff. The overhanging cliff was divided into 2 parts. One side was on this end, the other side was at another end. In the middle, it was separated by a distance of 300 meters. Such a great distance they couldn't fly. How could they run to the other end? Behind them, the Diamond Ape King was getting closer, his mouth breaking out in cold, devious laughter. The Diamond Ape King contemptuously looked at these ant-like humans. They actually made it work so hard to chase, it decided to dry them into human jerky, and slowly gnaw on them to eat. Behind there was the Diamond Ape King guarding. Up front was an overhanging cliff that they couldn't see the end of. Presently in front of them was a desperate impasse, with no way out. What to do? A thread of worry flashed through Ziyan's eyes. The Diamond Ape King's strength was tyrannical, so high as to be unmeasurable. Even if they acted together, they wouldn't even be able to defend against one of its punches. Just at this moment, Luo Haochen noiselessly approached Su Luo from behind. From his sleeves, a thin vine immediately shot towards the opposite part of the overhanging cliff. "Go die." Luo Haochen pushed Su Luo towards the Diamond Ape King. Unfortunately for him, Su Luo had her guard up against Luo Haochen from earlier. The nothingness of space that enveloped her body hadn't been lifted entirely. So this push by Luo Haochen was directly placed on the wall of the nothingness of space. It seemed hard, but was also soft at the same time. What was this? Chapter 843, Diamond Ape King 9. Luo Haochen couldn't describe what it felt like. He only knew that he couldn't even touch the edge of Su Luo's sleeve. And at this moment, Su Luo had flipped her body around and kicked Luo Haochen between his legs. Luo Haochen dodged this danger and slammed one palm strike towards Su Luo's back. But in front of Su Luo was the bottomless overhanging cliff. As a result, Su Luo was holding on to Ziyan, so they both fell down the bottomless cliff together. During the fall, Su Luo took out a dagger, directly cutting off the vine that Luo Haochen had attached to the opposite of the cliff. Would Su Luo fall to her death just like this? Naturally not. In her space was the red acacia tree that had just recognized her as its owner. This was a rare opportunity for it to show off. Therefore, just when Su Luo was falling down, a cyan-colored vine burst out from Su Luo's sleeve. The vine was thick and also strong, like a solid iron chain, firmly locking onto the huge boulder on the opposite of the cliff. Afterwards, Su Luo's two legs pushed off on the cliff wall, using this force of recoil to launch them towards the other side of the cliff. Su Luo and Ziyan shot like a meteor, across to the opposite cliff. Then what about Luo Haochen and Luo Die? Luo Haochen's vine got cut off by Su Luo. Immediately, he was so furious that his chest was about to explode. The Diamond Ape King witnessed the two human ants fall off the cliff, and fury burst out from its eyes. The humankind that he wanted to dry into jerky unexpectedly fell down the cliff. These humankind in front of it were simply seeking death. As a result, Diamond Ape King launched a heavy palm strike towards Luo Haochen. However, who would have thought that the delicate Luo Die was also a wood-fire dual elemental mage? Just when Luo Haochen was about to be smashed to death, Luo Die grabbed onto Luo Haochen and pulled. With the wind from this heavy palm strike, Luo Die carried Luo Haochen to fly backwards. Close to the 300 meters of distance, Luo Die and Luo Haochen skimmed over to the other side. However, just when they were about to reach their destination, Su Luo and Ziyan also chased them from the rear. Compared to Luo Die's thin green vine, the red acacia tree's vine was much more solid and thick. Didn't know whether the red acacia tree was trying to compete or not. A leaf on its vine shot towards Luo Die's vine. It was merely a leaf. How serious could it be? This would be many people's way of thinking, including Luo Die. But Luo Haochen's expression suddenly changed. He quickly launched his own green vine, as it flew towards the opposite rock wall. Sure enough, as he expected, that very small leaf was sharper than a dagger. It cut through from top to bottom Luo Die's thin green vine, which was immediately cut into two pieces. Luo Die was so scared that her face became colorless. Fortunately, Luo Haochen was already prepared. When Luo Die's thin green vine was cut apart, his green vine had reached the opposite side, just at that moment. Therefore, they were able to escape the dangerous situation this time. After reaching the other cliff, Ziyan, your friend wants to court death. Up until now, Luo Haochen still didn't know Su Luo's name, and Su Luo was too lazy to tell him. Ziyan smiled coldly. Luo Haochen, who was it that kicked us down the cliff? Don't worry, this time's matter. I've remembered it all. Ziyan pointed to her own forehead. Luo Haochen was immediately speechless. At that time, the circumstances were special. It was life and death. Humph, offend our Luo family, no matter who you are, you will die for sure. Luo Die sent an icily arrogantly glance at Su Luo. She looked at Su Luo as if looking at a dead person. The corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into a cold smile. The her right now wasn't the newcomer with no one to rely on, that daughter of a concubine from Su Manor. Want to kill her? You should reconsider her backing first. Su Luo swept a contemptuous glance at Luo Die. The wounds on Miss Luo's face seems to be very serious. It won't disfigure her face, right? Chapter 844, Diamond Ape King 10. The last half of the sentence was something Su Luo said to Ziyan. Which woman wouldn't treasure their appearance? Su Luo purposely said these words to stab at Luo Die's heart. Ziyan understood Su Luo completely, so she happily continued. How could it not? I feel that it is certain, that face would be disfigured. Can't you see it? That wound is so deep that you can see the bones, shining white and dripping with blood. Just looking at it is nauseating. Su Luo nodded her head to express her agreement, and she also moved far away from Luo Die, in a manner showing her disgust. So pitiful. Ziyan's expression was also full of pity. So young in appearance is already like this. She still hasn't even married yet, too pitiful. After Luo Die heard the two people going back and forth with being disfigured, and how pitiful she was, she touched her face. It was bloody, and with a wow sound. She was immediately scared into crying. Luo Haochen glared at the two with displeasure. Speak less and no one would think you guys are mute. At the same time, Luo Haochen patted Luo Die's shoulder. Don't worry, didn't Apothecary Lung just produce a new medicine called Rebirth of Flesh Pill? Wait until your brother go back and demands one for you. Luo Die, who originally was bawling, hearing this, she immediately stopped crying. She pitifully nodded her head. Brother must get one for Die. Okay, brother guarantees it. Luo Haochen said with extreme confidence. Hearing this, the corner of Su Luo's mouth curved up slightly. Ever since the last time, when senior brother helped cure her enemies, the Lu family siblings whose hands were cut off, his heart felt very guilty. As a result, he swore that he would never refine Rebirth of Flesh pills again. And those Rebirth of Flesh pills that he had refined before were all in her hand. This guarantee by Luo Haochen was not a bit guaranteed. Although the four people were divided into two groups, but at least there wasn't a life and death battle between them, so this situation could be regarded as quite calm. Just when Su Luo was about to look for a way out, and try to leave lifting up her head, she immediately discovered the Diamond Ape King coldly standing in front of them. Its pair of eyes was staring fixedly at Su Luo. At this moment among the four people, only Su Luo discovered this. Su Luo's body immediately froze. Su Luo subconsciously nudged Ziyan. What? Ziyan, at a loss, turned her head around. Before the last word to finish her question could be spoken, her body also froze immediately. Diamond Ape King. How could it be here? Su Luo and Ziyan glanced at each other. Both of them had a thread of shock in their eyes. Such a far distance. In the end, how did the Diamond Ape King get here? Seeing how Su Luo and Ziyan's body had stiffened in place, Luo Die was just about to taunt them, however. As a person who had the weakest psychological strength, Luo Die subconsciously screamed out loud. Quickly run. Su Luo grabbed Ziyan and took to her heels to run. Luo Die, this idiot. Was there a person who would provoke the Diamond Ape King like this? Su Luo and Ziyan ran very quickly. However, the Diamond Ape King didn't move a bit. Very clearly, its real target was Luo Die. Clearly, Luo Haochen also realized this point. He couldn't leave, just abandoning Luo Die, this younger sister, and not help her. Therefore, he immediately pulled Luo Die and turned around to chase after Su Luo's group. Even if they died, he must also drag them down to share the same fate. Brother! Brother! Luo Die suddenly thought of something. She took out a dark wooden box from the bag she carried on her body and handed it over to Luo Haochen. You even took this? Luo Haochen exclaimed in surprise. I was afraid there might be danger, so I stole this from Grandpa's secret room. Luo Die shrank her neck while explaining. Good, very good. Stole it well. Momentarily, Luo Haochen's mood became very good. The thing in the dark wooden box wasn't anything else but a spirit pinball. Luo Haochen grabbed the spirit pinball with his hand, but his heart hesitated and was somewhat uncertain. Chapter 845. Moment between life and death. 1. In front of him was Ziyan's pair of people, whom he had a life and death enmity with. Behind him was the Diamond Ape King that pursued closely, unwilling to let go. In fact, Luo Haochen really wanted to smash the spirit pinball in his hands towards Ziyan, and Su Luo pair. Brother. Luo Dai ran all the way in the back, being pursued by the Diamond Ape King without letting go. Letting you guys off lightly. Luo Haochen's gloomy and cold gaze glared at the two people up front. Then he coldly snorted in his heart. If it were not for the Diamond Ape King chasing them from behind, he was itching to smash the two people in front of him to death. Seeing that the Diamond Ape King was about to grab Luo Dai's back, a touch of a fierce, severe expression flashed through Luo Haochen's eyes. The spirit pinball in his hand suddenly smashed towards the Diamond Ape King. Go die! Luo Haochen angrily roared. Su Luo and Ziyan's heart were jolted. When they turned their head around, they were in time to see the spirit pinball being tossed towards the Diamond Ape King's chest. The Diamond Ape King's body was cumbersome and not nimble enough, thus he was smashed by it. Basically, it was unable to hide nor avoid it. Boom! A loud sound echoed and rolled like an air wave. Luo Haochen was wrapped up high by the air waves and flung far away. At this moment, who knew where Luo Dai was already flung to? Even the Su Luo pair of people were also carried by the rushing air waves to knock their heads against a rock. When Luo Haochen smashed the spirit pinball, the place he chose was too timely. It was actually under a cave. For a moment, the earth quaked and the mountains shook. The entire mountaintop violently shook. A countless number of boulders collapsed downwards like a landslide. The entire mountaintop seemed to have been split in half. Su Luo crawled up and shook her head. Her eyes stared fixedly at the center of the blaze. Because she had smashed people 2 times, both times she had smashed the opponent into a higher rank, helping her opponent skyrocket by 45,000 kilometers. As a result, Su Luo, with regards to using the spirit pinball in smashing others, didn't have a lot of self-confidence. Her pair of eyes stared intensely at the place where the blaze was ignited. Not long after, sure enough, the Diamond Ape King stood up. Although only one of its 2 heads remained, it still tenaciously stood up. Very clearly, this 9th-ranked spirit pinball did not kill it with the explosion. However, it seemed that it also didn't smash it to the next rank. From this, it could be seen that the Diamond Ape King's strength was far beyond the 9th rank. It stood up. A trace of astonishment flashed through Su Luo's heart. If you said that the Diamond Ape King was furious before, then now, it could only be described as crazy. Its pair of eyes became bloodshot like an ignited flame, making people's souls shudder and bodies stiffen. Its surroundings was filled with frightening fluctuations. At this moment, the Diamond Ape King was thoroughly enraged. Its furious pair of eyes glared rigidly at a place not far off. There Luo Haochen was lying in the original spot, neither dead nor alive. Seeing the main culprit that cut off one of its heads, the Diamond Ape King was exceptionally furious. Oyo! It angrily charged. Its palm leaf, fan-like claws attacked towards Luo Haochen. Just at this moment, the corner of Luo Haochen's mouth hooked up into a fierce sneer. Another dark spirit pinball appeared in his hand. That's right, it was another spirit pinball. 10th-ranked spirit pinball. Explode! Luo Haochen shouted out loud. The spirit pinball directly smashed towards the Diamond Ape King. Along with the spirit pinball's approaching attack, a frightening aura shrouded the Diamond Ape King. A trace of alarm actually flashed through its pair of crazed eyes. However, it was too late. The 10th-ranked spirit pinball directly exploded on the Diamond Ape King's body. Boom boom. It was another violent sound that made the earth quake and the mountains shake. A loud sound that frightened the skies, like waves of claps of thunder. At this moment, everyone's mind was violently jolted, their bodies swaying non-stop. Chapter 846, Moment Between Life and Death 2. The other half of the mountain peak was also heavily split into 2. At this moment, within the mountain peak that had been leveled flat, a bright divine light suddenly shot towards the skies. The divine light was like a pillar of light bursting out, linking heaven and earth together. Afterwards, this divine light suddenly exploded. All kinds of brilliant rays of light were dazzling like fireworks. An endless amount of spirit force rushed to attack in all directions. The center of the divine light was like the eye of a hurricane, so tranquil that there wasn't even a breeze. However, The surroundings where the divine light exploded with huge energy pushed the waves of air, overflowing to the sky. A countless number of mountain ranges were instantly leveled flat. A countless number of birds and beasts were turned into ashes and bones. A countless number of millennium-old trees were burned until nothing was left. The only undisturbed place was the mountain peak that had been leveled flat, where Su Luo and the others were. A saffron yellow color appeared in the distant sky, as far as the eye could see. It even rendered people's figures in a hazy, light yellow color. In the end, what happened? It was simply too mystical. Su Luo looked on with a stupefied expression at the scene in front of her. At this moment, Luo Haochen also slowly crawled up. He had searched for a long time and finally found Luo Die's figure. With one move, he had lifted her up from among the ashes. Brother! Luo Die, who was covered in grime from head to toe, opened her eyes with great difficulty. She raised her eyes and saw Luo Haochen's worried expression. Luo Haochen patted away the dust on her body. The dust on her face made her look like a striped cat. Ziyan walked to Su Luo's side, and the corner of her mouth slightly pursed. That Diamond Ape King would die just like this? Perhaps. Su Luo's gaze looked to the place where the divine light was bursting out. Her eyes were profoundly mysterious. Ziyan said with some regret. This was a magical beast at the peak of 9th rank. At the very least, we could have dug out a blue-colored crystal stone. A pity that the Luo family's brat would pick up this small advantage. Don't you feel it strange? Su Luo frowned slightly. Just now Luo Haochen had used 2 spirit pinballs in a row. Ziyan was usually smart, just a hint was all she needed. That's right, if he had a spirit pinball since the beginning, he couldn't have been chased until this point and still not used it. If it was just one, then it would explain why he would save it to conserve his strength, but there were 2, Su Luo muttered to herself. Where did Luo Haochen get the second spirit pinball? Crash! Just at this moment, in that pile of raging flames, a sinister magical beast crawled out. Heavens! Oh heavens! Ziyan was very stunned as she pointed at the slowly wiggling thing. She almost choked on her own saliva. Su Luo's eyes also narrowed instantly. Diamond Ape King! Luo Haochen cried out in alarm. His body couldn't help but to fall back. That pitch-black body with nearly 1/3 of it chopped off, was standing up like an iron tower. If it wasn't the Diamond Ape King, then who else could it have been? Su Luo swallowed her saliva with great difficulty. Although half of the Diamond Ape King's body had been destroyed at this time, but very clearly, its strength was stronger than before. Its vicious nature as a magical beast, under Luo Haochen's provocations time and time again, it was thoroughly aroused. Bang bang bang, the Diamond Ape King was in a rage. It roared and shouted step by step. It walked towards Luo Haochen. Fortunately, it was looking for Luo Haochen. Su Luo and Ziyan, seeing that the situation was not good, immediately turned around and wanted to run. However, they tragically discovered this area's heaven and earth seemed to have been sealed by something. Unexpectedly, she could not run out at all. Domain. Ziyan had a startled expression. Damned Luo Haochen. He actually smashed the Diamond Ape King into the 10th rank. Now that it can erect and control a domain, we are completely doomed. Su Luo's expression also followed by changing slightly. If they couldn't escape, would they have to obediently wait until the opponent came to kill them? That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.